My name is Lu Chushua. I woke up because of pain. Someone had thrown me onto the ground, and my hip bone hit a sharp rock hard. My hands and feet were tied up. I could barely think straight. Through my blurry half-sleep, I heard two people talking, a man and a woman. The woman called herself his auntie. The man called her Dagu. They were talking about me. The man had carried me here, and he was out of breath. The woman told him not to worry. I would be his future wife. Their plan was simple and cruel. They would leave me alone in this mountain cave overnight. If I didn't go home, my reputation would be ruined. Then the man would come, find me the next morning and pretend to be my rescuer. After that, people would assume something happened between us, and I would have no choice but to marry him. The woman promised to help pressure me into it. I should never have listened to my friend and gone paragliding. Now look where I ended up. But something was very strange. When I forced my eyes open and looked at the two of them walking away, I saw they were wearing old, patched-up gray clothes, the kind nobody wears anymore. Where on earth was I? Before I could figure it out, they blocked the cave entrance with big rocks and left. I was terrified, but I told myself to stay calm. I had to save myself. I spotted a rough, jagged rock sticking out of the ground near the entrance. I wriggled across the floor like a worm until I reached it. Then I rubbed the rope around my ankles against that rock over and over. It took everything I had, but I finally cut through the rope and freed my feet. I got up right away to find something to cut the rope on my wrists, but my body was weaker than I thought. The ropes had been so tight that blood wasn't flowing properly in my legs. I lost my balance and fell straight toward the cave wall. With my hands tied behind my back, I couldn't catch myself. I twisted my shoulders up at the last second to protect my head, but my forehead still scraped against the stone. Blood ran down my face, and I screamed from the pain. Before I could even recover from the pain, my head suddenly hurt again, a sharp, stabbing feeling, and then a flood of memories rushed into my mind. Memories that weren't mine. Now I understood why those two people wore old, patched-up clothes. When I went paragliding, I didn't just crash, I died. And somehow, I ended up in the body of someone living in 1975. The original owner of this body was also named Lu Chushua. She was 17 years old and lived in Willow Tree Village in Chongqing County, not far from Beijing. Her father got hurt yesterday. A rock fell on his leg while he was working at a reservoir construction site. Her mother rushed to the local clinic, and by nightfall she sent word back that it was serious. The clinic wanted to transfer him to a bigger hospital. This morning, the grandparents hurried off to check on him. The original Lu Chushua wanted to go too, since her school was near the clinic anyway. But her uncle's wife, Gu Xilan, convinced the grandparents to send her on a different errand instead, to cross the mountain and deliver a message to her married older sister at the North Suburb farm, and to borrow money from her brother-in-law for the father's medical bills. She had barely entered the mountain when someone knocked her out from behind. Putting this together with the conversation I overheard earlier, I understood everything. This girl was betrayed by her own family. I recognized Gu Xilan's voice from the memories. There was no mistake. She was the one behind all of this. I was furious. I wanted to find that woman and beat her senseless. Why would she do this to her own niece? Based on everything I knew from novels and TV dramas in my past life, there was only one answer. She had something to gain from it. While I was lost in thought, I heard rustling sounds outside the cave. My heart jumped. I was in no position to defend myself. Whether it was a person or a wild animal, I was completely helpless. Then the rocks blocking the entrance were pushed aside, and someone crawled in. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. But when I saw the person was wearing a military uniform, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "Comrade soldier, please help me," I called out right away. The man had a strong, tough-looking face, but he was clearly in bad shape. His skin was deathly pale. He saw me, gritted his teeth, and dragged himself forward a few steps. Then he half knelt in front of me, pulled a knife from his boot, and cut the rope binding my hands. The moment he did, he collapsed against the cave wall. I was about to thank him when I smelled blood. "Are you hurt?" I asked, panicking. He tried to reach into his chest pocket for something, but couldn't manage it. He kept trying and failing. I watched his hand and noticed a pen sticking out of his pocket. "You want the pen? You want to write something?" I guessed. He looked a little surprised that I figured it out so quickly and gave me a small nod. I flexed my stiff wrists, trying to get the feeling back. That's when I looked down at my own hands. They were rougher, different from the hands I remembered. It hit me all over again. I really had become someone else. I didn't have time to overthink. I pulled the pen from his pocket and quickly realized he needed something to write on. I said, "Excuse me," and searched through his pockets, but all I found was a pack of rolled cigarettes, no paper. So, I tore open the cigarette box and held it flat in front of him. I uncapped the pen and supported his elbow so he could steady his hand. Fighting through dizziness, he wrote down a name and a phone number. Then, in a hoarse, broken voice, he said, "Please, contact this person. Tell him the peach blossoms on Mang Mountain are blooming. Tell him to come see them soon. And don't forget to bring what he promised." After that, he went completely limp. "Comrade, what's wrong?" I asked, panicking. His face was white as paper. "I'm fine," he whispered. "Just please make the call." He weakly patted his chest pocket. "Take money for the phone call." From my pocket, I looked at the information on the cigarette box and knew this was urgent. My own problems could wait. "You saved my life today. I promise I'll get this done." I was about to leave, but I stopped. The smell of blood on him was too strong. I lifted the edge of his shirt and saw blood seeping through his uniform around his stomach. The wound was serious. I had learned some basic first aid in college, and my workplace had organized emergency training too. But I had no medicine, no real bandages, and the wound was too big for simple pressure to work. "Forgive me," I said, and started unbuttoning his jacket. It took a lot of effort to get it off. Then I removed his undershirt and tore it into wide strips to use as bandages. My wrapping was clumsy, but it was better than doing nothing. Whether he survived would depend on his luck now. I helped him back into his jacket. "Comrade, I'll get your message out as fast as I can." Coming from the future, I didn't feel embarrassed about undressing a stranger to treat his wound. I was saving a life. What I didn't notice was that the soldier's ears had turned red. I had the original Lu Chushua's memories, so I knew these mountains fairly well. I used the sun to find my direction and stumbled my way out. When I passed a small stream, I cleaned myself up quickly. My rule in life has always been, before helping others, protect yourself first. I didn't want anyone gossiping about my appearance. I went straight to the commune's post office, paid the deposit, and the worker dialed the number for me. When someone picked up, I said, "Could you please find Kong Yizhang?" A man's voice came through, sounding puzzled that a woman was asking for him. "That's me." "Who is this?" "Comrade Kong, someone asked me to tell you. The peach blossoms on Mang Mountain are blooming. He wants you to come see them as soon as possible, and don't forget to bring what you promised him." When Kong Yizhang heard my message, he shot to his feet. But he kept his composure and just asked where I was. I glanced around the post office and quietly told him. He said he'd come find me in an hour and a half and asked me to help carry some of the things he'd be bringing. I understood what he really meant, medical supplies for the soldier, and agreed. After I hung up, my mind was already turning to my own situation. Since my uncle's wife Gu Xiaolan had no conscience, I wouldn't hold back either. First, I went to school and told my teacher about my father's injury. I got a week off. Then I made sure to visit my classroom, chat with a few classmates, and even ask the only boy in class who owned a watch what time it was, also people would remember seeing me there today. Then I headed straight for the township clinic. When I arrived, the grandparents had already left. My mother was standing in the hallway outside the hospital room, wiping her tears. "Why are you here?" she asked when she saw me. I was worried about Dad. I asked my teacher for time off. She started crying harder but covered her mouth so my father wouldn't hear. I peeked into the room and whispered, "Mom, what's the situation?" She choked back tears and explained. The clinic said my father needed to go to a bigger hospital in the city. The injury was serious. He might need steel pins in his leg. It could cost 200 or 300 yuan with no guarantee it would even work. The construction site where the accident happened said it wasn't during official work hours, so they'd only cover half the cost. And the grandparents said the family couldn't come up with much money. 2 or 300 yuan in 1975, that was an enormous amount. Mom, no matter how much it costs, we have to get him treated, I said. We can't wait too long or he'll miss the best window for recovery. She knew that, but without money and without anyone to lean on, she was falling apart. Even though I wasn't the original Lu Chishua, I was living in her body now, and these were my responsibilities. Don't panic, I told her. The construction site is paying half. The family will have to put in something, they can't contribute nothing at all. I'll go visit my older sister and see if her husband can lend us some money. We'll figure this out. Hearing me talk like this seemed to steady her. She wiped her eyes and said she'd go back to the village to try borrowing from the neighbors too. We couldn't put all our hopes in one place. With a plan set, I went into the room. Lying on the bed was a weathered, tired-looking man. I felt a complicated mix of emotions. This stranger was now my father. No matter what era you live in, being without money makes everything impossible. A single coin can defeat even the strongest person. He turned his head toward me and forced a smile that looked worse than crying. Chushua, why did you come?
I'm Fine.
Go back to school. Then he quickly added, you're graduating in a few months. Don't let this affect your studies. You can't waste all those years of school. Under the blanket, I could see his hand clench into a tight, defeated fist. Looking at the honest, hard-working man lying in that hospital bed, I felt tears welling up. Maybe it was the original Lu Chushua's emotions affecting me. Dad, don't worry. We'll gather the money and get you to the city hospital as soon as we can. His eyes dimmed. Chushua, let the family decide how to handle this. Don't get involved. Just focus on your studies. I could tell what he was really afraid of, that the grandparents would use his injury as an excuse to pull his daughters out of school. Having 3 girls in school was already something they disapproved of. I told him I was heading to the north suburb farm to let my older sister know what happened. He immediately stopped me. Don't ask your brother-in-law for money. Your sister's family hasn't split their household yet. If we ask to borrow money, it'll put her in a terrible position with her in-laws. Don't worry, Dad. I won't make things difficult for them. I promised. We talked a little more, and then I made an excuse to leave early. I didn't tell my parents about what Gu Xiulan and her nephew had done to me. I had just arrived in this world, and I wanted to use this incident to figure out what kind of people the Lu family really were. Besides, people at school and the clinic could confirm where I'd been today. If Gu Xiulan tried anything, she'd only end up hurting herself. I still had time before Kong Yizhang would arrive, so I found a hidden spot near the post office, sat down, and finally had a chance to sort through the original Lu Chushua's memories carefully. Meanwhile, back in Willow Tree Village, Gu Xiulan was working in the fields, barely able to contain her excitement. She kept glancing toward the mountain, trying not to look suspicious. Her second son, Lu Jiandong, came over and whispered, "Mom, did it work?" She looked around to make sure no one was watching. Everything went perfectly. Just wait. You'll be working in the city soon. That's when I understood her full plan from the memories. It wasn't just about marrying me off to her nephew. It was all about profit. If I was ruined and forced to marry, her nephew would get a wife for free, and her son would get some kind of job opportunity out of the deal. On top of that, they could use my shame to control me for the rest of my life. And she had even bigger plans. With my father injured and unable to work, she intended to whisper in the grandparents' ears and convince them to pull me and my younger sister out of school. That would save the family money and force us to go back to the village to earn work points. She had always been bitter that we studied better than her own children, and the villagers' comparisons drove her crazy. In her mind, everything was perfect. Her nephew gets a wife, her son gets a job, and the 2 girls she hated would lose their education. She didn't care one bit about ruining my reputation. Her own youngest daughter wouldn't need to find a husband for another 4 or 5 years. So, who would even remember by then? She really had thought of everything. Too bad for her. The person inside this body now wasn't the same naive girl she thought she could push around. I went through the original Lu Chushua's memories carefully while waiting for Kong Yizhang. The Lu family grandparents had 3 sons and 2 daughters, all married. Gu Xiaolan was the wife of the eldest son, the first branch of the family. The more I thought about her scheme, the more I felt there was something deeper going on. She had gone through a lot of trouble and taken a big risk. If it was just about finding a wife for her nephew, it didn't make sense to go this far. There had to be more to it, some hidden benefit for the first branch that I hadn't figured out yet. But whatever her plan was, she picked the wrong person to mess with. I'm not the original Lu Qixue. I don't forgive, and I don't forget. Those 2 destroyed an innocent girl's life for their own selfish gain, and I would make them pay for it many times over. Just as I finished sorting my thoughts, I heard a car pull up. A military jeep stopped across from the post office. A sharp-looking man with a serious expression stepped out and scanned the area carefully.
He walked over.
Are you Comrade Kong? He looked at me with barely hidden urgency. You're the one who called me? We skipped the small talk. The soldier's condition was too serious for that. Willow Tree Village wasn't far from the commune, and with the driver going as fast as he could, we reached the spot where I'd come out of the mountain in no time. On the way, I told Kong Yizhong everything. How I found the soldier, how he cut my ropes, his wound, the bandaging I'd done. When we reached the cave, the soldier had already passed out. He was burning with fever. Kong Yizhong rushed to his side. Yanqing, wake up. The man barely opened his eyes for a moment, then lost consciousness again. Kong Yizhong didn't waste another second. He ordered the men to bring the stretcher they'd carried in and to move him carefully. Then he turned to me. Comrade Lu, I'm deeply grateful for what you did today. I will send a proper thank you gift later. But please keep everything about today a secret. I understood completely. Whatever mission that soldier was on, it was clearly serious. As long as he's okay, that's enough for me. No need for thanks. I won't say a word about any of this. I told them I still needed to continue to the north suburb farm to see my sister. Kong Yizhong didn't like the idea of leaving a girl alone in the mountains, but I pointed toward the cave. His condition is bad, you need to go now. I'll clean up in here so no one finds any traces, and then I'll head to the farm. The logging team's camp is just a few hundred meters ahead, so I'll be fine. He agreed, and they carried the soldier away on the stretcher. Kong Yizhong knew I'd grown up running through these mountains, so he agreed to let me stay. He reached into his pocket to give me some money, but realized he'd lent most of it to a colleague that morning. Looking a little embarrassed, he handed me the few small bills he had left. I'm sorry, this is all I have. Please call me afterwards so I know you're safe. I could tell he felt bad about leaving me alone, but the soldier's injuries couldn't wait. I watched them disappear down the mountain with the stretcher. Once they were gone, I gathered some thorny branches from a hidden spot nearby and went back into the cave. I carefully swept away every trace, footprints, bloodstains, anything. Those 2 who had kidnapped me were no good, and I didn't want them finding any clues. As I was about to leave, I caught a flash of light from a dark corner deeper inside the cave. I almost ignored it, but it flashed again. Curious, I went to check, but it was too dark to see anything unusual. Just as I pulled my hand back, my middle finger got scraped on a sharp edge of the cave wall. A few drops of my blood fell and seemed to soak into the ground instantly. I hissed in pain and cursed my bad luck. I wrapped the cut with a handkerchief from my pocket, gave the corner one more sweep with the branches, and left. What I didn't know was that shortly after I left, 2 strangers came to that same cave. Are you sure this is the right place? One asked. They searched the whole cave, but found nothing. They argued about whether they had the wrong spot, but one insisted this was the only cave matching the description they'd been given. In the end, they left empty-handed, worried that whoever hired them wouldn't pay the rest of their fee. I arrived at my older sister's husband's family home right at lunchtime, which immediately annoyed the second grandson's wife, a pregnant woman with a sour attitude. Who visits right at mealtime? She muttered loudly. My brother-in-law Qiu Xiaofeng looked embarrassed as he stood up to welcome me. Qixue, what brings you here? My sister Lu Xiaoqiu heard my voice from the kitchen and rushed out. Qixue, did something happen at home? She knew me well. I wouldn't show up in the middle of the day without a reason. Seeing the atmosphere, I decided not to bring up borrowing money. I didn't want to make things harder for my sister or give her in-laws more ammunition to use against her. I kept it simple. Sis, Dad got hurt yesterday at the reservoir. A rock fell on his leg. I came to let you know. Before anyone could respond, that pregnant woman let out a sneering laugh. Oh, where'd he get hurt? Must be pretty bad if you came running over at noon like this. The whole yard went silent for a second. Then several voices spoke at once. Shut your mouth. The courtyard fell dead quiet. The people who told that pregnant woman to shut up weren't just me. My brother-in-law Chiu Xiaofeng and the Chiu family's great-grandmother, a tiny old woman with bound feet, spoke up at the same time. The old lady glared at the troublemaker. If food can't keep your mouth shut, nothing will. Your sister-in-law's family matters are none of your business. Behave yourself. My sister grabbed my arm, her voice shaking. Chushua, tell me everything. I explained the situation quickly. When she heard how serious Dad's leg injury was, she nearly broke down. I steadied her. His leg is bad, but it's not beyond saving. What's done is done. We just have to deal with it. She wiped her face with her sleeve and pulled herself together. The great-grandmother hobbled over with her cane and kindly told my sister to sit me down and give me something to eat. I could see the old woman meant well, but I couldn't stand listening to that other woman's nasty comments anymore. I didn't want one meal to cause more trouble in my sister's household. Thank you, great-grandma, but I need to get back to the clinic to take over for my mother, I said. I told my sister to take care of things at home, and I left. The smell of food followed me out. My stomach was screaming. As I passed the farm's reservoir, I watched fish swimming near the surface and couldn't help thinking about all the delicious ways I knew how to cook them from my past life. A cold wind blew, and the fish swam away. All I could do was stare. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly at my situation. All I wanted was to try paragliding, and somehow I ended up in an era where I couldn't even eat my fill. Absolutely ridiculous. I patted my growling stomach. Stop complaining. Get through today, and I promise I'll never let you go hungry again. I had a plan forming in my mind, so I picked up my pace. Gu Xiaolan's hometown, Gu Village, was just across the river from Willow Tree Village. I couldn't show up at home yet, so I decided to go spy on the Gu family first. I knew a bit about that nephew of hers from the original Lu Chushua's memories, and their house was conveniently at the edge of the village. When I arrived, the work whistle had just blown and most of the family headed out. I hid behind a haystack and watched, but the nephew, Gu Baocheng, never came out. Just as I was debating whether to keep watching or leave, I heard voices from inside the house. Baocheng, why aren't you going to work? An old woman asked. Grandma, I have important business early tomorrow morning, remember? Right. I'll ask the team leader to excuse you. But don't let anything slip before it's done. And when it works out, don't forget to thank your aunt. Don't worry, Grandma. I'll take good care of Aunt in the future. Then the grandmother added something that made my blood run cold. Still, those Chin family people are truly heartless. They wanted to break off the engagement themselves, and instead of doing it honestly, they set that poor girl up. The nephew chuckled. Well, if the Chin family didn't want to back out of the marriage, we wouldn't have gotten this opportunity, would we? I heard every word clearly. The real masterminds behind all of this weren't just Gu Xiaolan and her nephew. It was the Chin family, the family the original Lu Chushua was engaged to marry into. They wanted to cancel the engagement, but didn't want to look bad, so they schemed to ruin her reputation instead. A truly ungrateful pack of wolves. The original Lu Chushua's father had once saved the Chin family, grandfather and grandson, from a wolf attack. They would have died without him. Afterward, the Chin family came to our door and proposed the engagement themselves. And now they not only wanted to break it off, but they'd hired someone to ruin the girl whose father saved their lives. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Then I noticed something strange. I looked down at my hand and found it full of wood shavings. While I'd been fuming, I had grabbed a piece of firewood from the haystack beside me and crushed it to dust with my bare hand. I stared at my palm in shock. How was that possible? That firewood was hard and thick. I grabbed another piece, a thicker one this time, and squeezed. It crumbled to bits like it was nothing. I tested it again, and again. Every time the same result. I had superhuman strength now. Was this some kind of bonus for being transported to another world? I wanted to scream with excitement, but I was still hiding behind the Goof family's haystack, so I held it in. With this kind of strength, plus the martial arts I'd learned in my past life for self-defense, nobody could push me around anymore. Against raw power, all their little schemes were meaningless. Then I realized something else. I could hear the grandmother and Go Baocheng talking clearly, but they'd been in the backyard, far from where I was hiding. Their front yard had been completely quiet the whole time. That meant my hearing had gotten incredibly sharp too. My head was spinning. Was I turning into some kind of lucky charm after all that bad luck? In my excitement, I kept nervously crushing firewood, and soon the ground around my feet was covered in wood shavings. I thought to myself, wouldn't it be perfect if I also had one of those magical storage spaces, like in the novels? I could just think, collect, and make things disappear inside it. That would make getting revenge so much easier. I mumbled without thinking. I'd just say collect, 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 and that would be it. The entire haystack vanished right before my eyes. I nearly screamed. My heart almost stopped. Quickly, I did what characters in novels always do and thought, come out, come out. The haystack reappeared exactly where it had been. I wiped the cold sweat from my forehead. Then, hands trembling, I tested it on some building stones stacked behind the Goof family's yard. First, I tried just thinking collect. Nothing happened. Then I put my hand on the stones and thought collect. They vanished instantly. At the same moment, a vision flashed in my mind. A space with mountains and water inside it. I had a storage dimension. An actual magical space. I couldn't figure out where this power came from. Maybe something to do with my blood dripping on that cave floor earlier? But I wasn't going to question my luck. Before I could explore the space further, I heard the old grandmother call out, Baocheng, I'm leaving. Lock the gate before you rest. He answered her, but didn't bother coming out to close the gate after she left. I smiled to myself. That old woman had been part of the plot against the original Lu Chushua, so she deserved a lesson too. And the unlocked gate made things very convenient for me. I'd been to the Goof family's house a few times before with my cousin, so I knew the layout. I slipped through the unlocked gate and went straight into the old grandmother's room. Collect, collect, collect. I cleaned her out of anything valuable. Then I hit the kitchen and took whatever caught my eye. Finally, I went to the backyard and collected their 2 hens. Go Baocheng was still napping inside, completely unaware. I ran into the mountains without stopping. When I found a hidden spot behind some thick bushes, I did what characters in novels always do. I closed my eyes and thought about going inside the space. Instantly, the ground shifted under me, and I was somewhere else entirely. It was real. I was standing inside the space. In front of me was a beautiful little world, a mountain on one side, water on the other 3 sides, and about 10 acres of farmland at my feet. In the distance near the mountains sat a small courtyard. The space was mostly empty, just a few unknown trees scattered on the hillside, and no sign of any other living things. I was so happy I ran back and forth across the fields like a crazy person until I finally calmed down. I walked to the little courtyard. A thin stream of spring water trickled down through a crack in the rock wall, pooling into a tiny natural pond. The house door was open. I peeked inside carefully. The floors were smooth stone. The main room had a set of beautiful yellowish-brown wooden furniture, a table, chairs, and a reclining couch. Simple but elegant. The left room was a kitchen with stone shelves holding all kinds of old cooking tools that looked like antiques. Behind the kitchen wall was a door leading down to an underground storage room. The right room was a bedroom and study combined, with matching wooden furniture, a bed, wardrobe, and desk. Everything was empty though, no clothes or bedding. On the desk, I found a thin jade tablet. It was unusually flat, different from a regular jade pendant. I turned it over and over, but couldn't figure out what it was. Still, I had a feeling this tablet was connected to how I'd gotten this space. Nothing in the original Lu Chushua's memories explained it. I decided to stop overthinking. I'd just call it heaven's compensation for dropping me into 1975. My stomach growled loudly, reminding me I still hadn't eaten. I'd taken some food from the Goof family's kitchen, mixed flour steamed buns in a basket. I thought about them, and they appeared right in my hands. The surprise made me jump, and I forgot I was still holding the jade tablet in my other hand. I slapped my palm against my forehead out of shock, and the tablet touched my skin. Suddenly, a flood of information rushed into my brain. The tablet belonged to someone with the surname Shao, left behind by a powerful ancestor as a gift for future descendants. It explained everything: my superhuman strength, my sharp hearing. All of it came from this tablet. And that accidental tap on my forehead had given me a trace of the ancestors' spiritual energy. Was I somehow a descendant of the Shao family? That seemed impossible. But after wrestling with the question, I let it go. The space was mine now, why torture myself over the reason? I set the tablet on the desk, then dropped to my knees before it. I don't know why I received this gift, I said, but I'm deeply grateful. I promise to do good things and live in a way that's worthy of this blessing. From the information the jade tablet had put into my mind, I learned that time inside the space moved 4 times faster than outside. Anything I collected would automatically go to the underground storage. I went back down to check and found the storage room looked completely empty, until I noticed a tiny dark spot way in the far corner. That's when I understood. The storage was infinitely large. The things I'd taken from the Goof family were like a drop in the ocean. I also explored the water surrounding the space. Half of it was blue seawater and half was clear freshwater, separated perfectly with no mixing at all. It was beautiful to look at. But the mountain was nearly bare and the fields were empty. I had a lot of work ahead of me. I had things to do outside, so I left the space. The moment I was back, my stomach growled again. I'd gotten so distracted I forgot to eat. I thought about those steamed buns from the Goof family's kitchen, and 2 of them appeared in my hand, still warm. The space even had a preservation function. That was incredible. I ate both buns, brushed off my hands, and headed to the commune in good spirits. I needed to keep up the act, pretend everything was normal, and wait for the people who schemed against me to trip over their own plans. When I reached the clinic, I ran into my older sister and her husband arriving at the same time. My mother came out and assumed we'd traveled together. My sister called out, "Mom," and immediately started tearing up. "How's Dad?" Mom sighed and just pointed toward the room. "Go inside." Dad tried to put on a brave face when he saw them. My sister rushed to his bedside, crying, "Dad, does it hurt a lot?" Her tears fell right onto his hand, and you could see how much that pained him. "Don't cry," he said softly. "It's much better now." I pulled my mother aside. "Mom, did you go back to the village?" Her face was grim. "Your grandparents said the family can only give us 30 yuan. 30 yuan? That's it." She nodded, then told me the rest. My grandparents said my second cousin had found a job opportunity in the city that would cost a lot of money to secure. The first branch, my uncle's family, argued that Dad's leg might not heal even with expensive treatment at the city hospital, so it would be smarter to spend the family's money buying that job for my cousin instead of throwing it away on Dad. My blood boiled. They wanted to sacrifice my father's leg so my cousin could buy a city job, the same cousin whose mother had just tried to destroy my life. Everything was connected. Gu Xiaolan's scheme wasn't just about marrying me off to her nephew. She wanted to keep the family's money for her own son's job opportunity. My father's injury was just a convenient excuse for them to redirect every last yuan to the first branch. They had crossed my bottom line. My sister heard what Mom told me about the 30 yuan and exploded. If Grandpa and Grandma hadn't forced Dad to work at that reservoir in the first place, this never would have happened. And now they won't even pay for his treatment. Dad was clearly hurt too, but he tried to swallow it. "Maybe they're right," he said quietly. "Even if I go to the city hospital, my leg might not heal. Maybe it's better to just..." I cut him off. "Whether it can be healed or not, we have to try. What if it works? Money can be earned again, but if we miss the window to treat your leg, that chance is gone forever." The room went silent. I couldn't stand the heavy atmosphere, so I stepped out and went to find the doctor. I asked detailed questions about Dad's condition, then came back to the room. The patient in the next bed was gone, so I took a deep breath and said something that shocked everyone. "What if we use the situation to split off from the family? Would you be willing?" There was no way I could ever live peacefully under the same roof as the first branch. Better to plan ahead now. Mom wanted it. I could tell, but she never dared say it out loud. Your grandparents would never agree. Dad's lips moved, but no words came out. My sister and her husband looked stunned. In the village, splitting from the family while the parents were still alive was considered disgraceful. I spoke calmly. It might not come to that. But look at how the family reacted when Dad got hurt. They'd rather spend money on a job for my cousin than save Dad's leg. Think back over the years. Have the grandparents really treated all three sons equally? They went quiet, thinking it over. I could see the memories clicking into place. I'm just giving you a heads up, I said. With Dad injured like this, the other branches might start seeing us as a burden. I knew these words would hurt Dad, but it was better to face the truth now than keep getting blindsided. It was getting late. Mom told us to head home so we wouldn't be traveling in the dark. But my brother-in-law offered to stay overnight and look after Dad so Mom could go back to the village, rest, and try talking to the grandparents one more time. Dad finally gathered his courage.
Fine.
Tell your parents the treatment money can count as a loan from the family. Once my leg heals, I'll work to pay it all back. With a plan settled, the three of us, Mom, my sister, and I, left the clinic. The road was quiet, hardly anyone around. I pulled them aside to the riverbank nearby, where it was open and private. Mom, sis, there's something I need to tell you. I didn't want to fight this battle alone. Some things were better shared with family. I told Mom and my sister everything, how Gushiolan and her nephew drugged and kidnapped me, and what I overheard at the Gu family's house. I don't know if the whole first branch isn't on it or just Gushiolan, but I don't believe she went through all that trouble just to get her nephew a wife. My sister's eyes went red with fury. How could she do this? Mom completely lost it. That shameless woman. I'll kill her. She started running toward the village, but I grabbed her arm and held her back. Being impulsive won't solve anything. I told you this, so you won't be fooled by them. Not so you'd go start a fight. Dad's leg can't wait. We can't put all our hopes on the family helping us. Mom stopped struggling, her voice shaking. It's because your father and I are useless that they dare treat you like this. What's your plan, Chishiwa? Right now, the only thing that matters is raising money. Everything else can wait. If we save Dad's leg, our little family has a future and nobody will dare bully us so easily. I laid out my plan. Go door to door in the village and borrow money from neighbors. If the grandparents and the other branches made a fuss about it, we'd have the moral high ground. They refused to help first. And if it came down to splitting the family, so be it. Sure, people would gossip, but the benefits outweighed the shame. No more living under the grandparents' thumb. No more listening to the other branches mock us. And we'd finally be in charge of our own lives. Mom's eyes filled with tears. All these years without a son, she'd had a hard time in the Liu household. The grandparents pretended to be fair, but they constantly reminded her that since she had no boys, she should treat her nephews well. The other two daughters-in-law laughed at her behind her back. She knew the villagers called our branch the dead-end family. No sons to carry on the name. She couldn't argue with facts. Once they both calmed down, I reminded them, our priority is getting Dad to the city hospital. We'll deal with everything else later. Of course, I had no intention of letting those people off easy. I'd find ways to make their lives uncomfortable whenever I could. They started this fight dirty, so they had no right to expect me to play nice. At the village entrance, we split up. I couldn't be seen yet. My plan depended on people not knowing I was back. Mom, remember, patience. Don't let anger ruin the bigger plan. She wiped her tears and nodded. Mom went to the Liu family house while my sister and I headed to the far east side of the village. The family wasn't expecting Mom back so soon. Grandma frowned. Why aren't you at the clinic with Shanliang? Mom didn't waste time on pleasantries. The doctor says his leg can't wait any longer. He needs surgery at a big hospital right away. I came back to get money from the family. Before Grandma could even respond, Gushiolan poked her head out of the kitchen and spoke up first. I heard that even a big hospital can't guarantee his leg will heal. You shouldn't be so selfish. Jiandong finally has a chance at a city job. If we spend the family savings on your husband's leg, that opportunity is gone. The courtyard fell completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Mom stared straight at the grandparents. waiting for them to speak. Grandpa said nothing. Grandma cleared her throat awkwardly. We feel for your husband, but you know the family situation. Your sister-in-law's words aren't pleasant, but they're realistic. Mom's anger flared. What exactly are you saying? Gushilon jumped in before Grandma could soften the blow. She's saying we can't sacrifice the younger generation's future just for one person. My younger sister Chun Xiao had been hiding by the doorway, but she couldn't take it anymore. Annie, that's too much. Isn't my father part of this family? He got hurt working for all of us. Are you saying the family has decided to just let him suffer? Gushilon glared at her. Adults are talking. A little girl like you has no business opening her mouth. Mom pushed Chun Xiao behind her and stepped forward. Father, what'd he say? Grandpa was packing tobacco into his pipe.
He sighed.
It's not that we don't want to help. But if Jiandong misses this job opportunity, he may never get another one. Mom finally exploded. So, you're just going to abandon my husband? Is that it? Then Grandma made things worse. If we're being honest, your husband brought this on himself. It wasn't even work hours yet. Why did he go to the site early? Mom was shaking now, tears and fury mixing together. You're the ones who made him go to that construction site in the first place. He went early because he wanted to earn extra money for the family. And now you're blaming him. My uncle, the eldest son, finally spoke up, but only to scold Mom. Watch how you talk to your elders. Mom had had enough. I'll ask one last time. Is this family going to pay for my husband's treatment or not? Grandpa lit his pipe, his face cold. Like I said before, 30 yuan and that's the most. The Liu family's future depends on Jiandong and the other boys. That last remark was a knife to the heart. He was reminding us, yet again, that our branch had no sons, and therefore no future worth investing in. While all this was happening, my sister and I were busy on the other side of the village. We went house to house, visiting every family that was friendly with ours. We told them about Dad's injury and that Mom would come by soon to formally ask for loans. I had 2 reasons for doing this. First, if Gush Xilan tried to spread lies about me tomorrow, claiming I'd been out all night and ruined my reputation, these neighbors could confirm they'd seen me that evening, perfectly fine and borrowing money for my father's medical bills. Her story would fall apart instantly. Second, asking people for money requires respect. Giving them advance notice was the polite thing to do, since every family was struggling and lending money was a big decision. After we finished our rounds, my sister and I walked toward our meeting spot. She looked worried. Chushue, if things really go the way you think, do we actually want to split from the family? She was traditional at heart and afraid the whole village would look down on us for breaking away while the grandparents were still alive. The concern was written all over her face. My sister was still hesitating about splitting from the family, so I laid it out plainly. It's not that we want to split. They're forcing us. If we don't, how will we pay for Dad's leg? She still looked unsure, so I pushed further. If I'm right, Gush Xilan will start her scheme first thing tomorrow morning. Do you really think we can survive under the same roof after that? Her face went pale. I sighed and added one more thing. When you got married, our branch didn't see a single coin of your bride price. The first branch took it all and used it to pay for our eldest cousin's wedding. I'm not going to let them control and use my marriage the same way. Soon Mom arrived, clutching a small bundle. I'd told her earlier to quietly take anything valuable from our room tonight before things blew up tomorrow and we lost the chance. She nodded, though valuable was generous. The bundle held our best sets of clothes and 21 yuan and 30 cents that Dad had secretly saved from selling wild game at the black market. Mom understood the situation now. The grandparents had made up their minds. Dad's leg wasn't their priority. Once the village heard we were going around borrowing money, the rest of the family would panic about sharing the debt. Just like I predicted, they'd be the ones pushing for the family split, not us. My sister glanced back toward the Liu house, worried about our younger sister Chun Xiao. Mom reassured her that Chun Xiao was already in bed when she left. The 3 of us hurried toward the clinic. Going back at this late hour was part of my plan. I went over everything with them one more time on the road, what had happened, what would happen tomorrow, and exactly how we should handle each step. By the time they fully understood, we'd reached the clinic gates. The gatekeeper's light was still on. I gave Mom a look. This was another part of my plan. The old man guarding the gate, Uncle Seven, was from our own village, a veteran who'd been injured in the army and given this job afterward. He was a trustworthy witness. Mom greeted him, and when he asked why we'd come so late, she let everything pour out. How the family refused to pay for Dad's treatment, how they'd rather spend the money on a job for our cousin. She didn't hide a thing. This was my strategy. To save Dad's leg, we needed public opinion on our side. The more people who knew how unfairly we'd been treated, the harder it would be for the grandparents to justify abandoning Dad. Uncle Seven sighed sympathetically. Don't worry too much. Even if the family won't help, there's still the reservoir construction site. And you can borrow from neighbors. You'll find a way. He looked at my sister and me. You too, take care of your mother. Don't let her worry herself sick. Yes, Grandpa Seven, we both answered. We chatted a bit longer, long enough to make sure he'd remember us being there that night, then headed to the ward. Near the hallway outside Dad's room, I whispered the plan for tomorrow. Mom, first thing in the morning, go back to the village and talk to the grandparents one more time. Then make a big show of borrowing money from the neighbors. Sis and I will go to the reservoir construction site and see if we can get them to pay us some of their share of the medical costs. Up front, I glanced toward the ward and continued laying out the plan. Have brother-in-law stay at the clinic tomorrow to handle the paperwork and pack everything up. When we get back, we'll catch the noon bus to the city. Nothing gets delayed. Mom and my sister both nodded. I'd become their backbone, without really meaning to. Mom was already coming around to the idea of splitting the family. She'd dreamed of it for years, but never dared say so. Life hadn't been easy for us even before Dad's injury. No sons meant no respect. If Dad's leg didn't heal, things would only get worse. Splitting off was clearly the better path. Tonight's loud argument at the Liu house had surely been overheard by the neighbors. That was exactly the effect I wanted. We went into the ward. Dad and my brother-in-law had nearly fallen asleep and were startled to see us back. Mom told them everything, how the family refused to pay, how even the promised 30 yuan was taken off the table after she argued with them. Dad's breathing grew heavy. Forget it then, he said, closing his eyes. It's just my fate, but the veins bulging on his neck told a different story. He was furious. My brother-in-law pulled my sister aside and whispered, how can Grandpa and Grandma treat Dad like this? Mom's eyes were fierce. Shanliang, tomorrow morning we're going back to the village. If the family still won't help, then we split. Prepare yourself, and don't blame us for being difficult. She arranged sleeping spots for everyone. My sister and I got an empty bed in the next room, and my brother-in-law found a bench in the hallway. Meanwhile, back at the Liu house, things weren't peaceful either. Grandma couldn't sleep. If we really ignore this, the whole village will look down on us, she said to Grandpa. Better to be gossiped about than to waste money, he replied. We agreed on this. Don't go soft now. But the way she acted today. She won't give up easily, Grandpa scoffed. She couldn't even give birth to a son. What can she do? Turn the world upside down. Then he said something that made his true intentions chillingly clear, even though I only learned about it later. Actually, this works out fine. If his leg doesn't heal and he's crippled, he can still work. That makes them easier to control. And that girl Chushua is growing up pretty. Once she graduates in half a year, we'll ask the Chin family for a big bride price. That money can pay for Jiandong's job and find a good wife for our grandson. Grandma started to say something. What if someday? But Grandpa cut her off sharply. How many times have I told you? Stop bringing up the past. The room went silent. After a long pause, he spoke again. Stop worrying. If something was going to happen, it would have happened by now. Even if someone comes looking, it's not our fault. We weren't home that day. And we've treated everyone fairly all these years. Nobody can say otherwise. They were hiding something. Something from the past that made Grandma nervous. And Grandpa wanted it buried forever. What the grandparents didn't know was that I had sneaked back to the Liu house that night and heard every word they said through the door. They were hiding a secret. From the way Grandpa talked, saying they'd treated everyone fairly and weren't home that day, I pieced together something shocking. My father might not actually be their biological son. That explained everything. It wasn't just about our branch having no sons. The root of their coldness ran much deeper than that. Treated everyone fairly. What a joke. The next morning at dawn, Mom went back to the village as planned. She knelt before Grandpa in the courtyard. Father, I'm begging you. Please agree to send Shanliang to the city hospital. His leg can't wait any longer. Word of last night's fight had already spread through the village. The moment there was noise from the Lu courtyard, neighbors gathered around. People whispered among themselves. The clinic can't treat him and says he needs a bigger hospital, but the family won't pay. Isn't Shanliang the most hardworking of the three brothers? Why won't they help him? I heard they'd rather spend the money buying a city job for the eldest branch's son. That's completely unfair. The family's savings don't belong to just one branch. It's because the second branch has no sons. They have no voice in that house. The gossip spread like wildfire. Exactly what I wanted. Grandpa saw the crowd and was furious. Can't you discuss this behind closed doors instead of making a scene? Mom wasn't backing down. I tried talking nicely, and look where that got me. My husband's leg will be ruined if we wait any longer. Grandma came out with a sour face. The doctor said even the city hospital can't guarantee a full recovery. Why waste money when it might not work? Think about the family. Then Gu Xiaolan broke free from her husband's grip and charged forward. Are you done yet? That money is for my Jiandong's future. Your husband's leg is already done for. Why can't he make a small sacrifice for his nephew? Mom ignored her completely and stared straight at Grandpa. I'm asking you one last time. Is this family going to help my husband or not? Grandpa's face was dark as ink. It's not that we don't want to. We just don't have the means. Mom wiped her tears, stood up tall, and said, Fine. Then I'll find a way myself. She turned and walked out without looking back. Grandpa wanted to call after her, but the villagers outside were pointing and whispering about him. He opened his mouth but couldn't get a word out. Humiliated, he flung his sleeve and stormed back inside. The seed was planted. The whole village now knew exactly how the Lu family had treated my father. Public opinion was firmly on our side. Grandma couldn't believe that Mom, the most obedient daughter-in-law, had dared to stand up to them. She cursed after her. I'd love to see what you can do on your own. Who does she think she is? But Mom was already going door to door, visiting the families my sister and I had spoken to the night before, formally asking to borrow money. It didn't take long for news to reach the Lu house. Grandma slapped her thigh in rage. Has she lost her mind? Gu Xiaolan panicked for a different reason. Mom, we haven't split the family yet. If she borrows money in the Lu family name, those people will come knocking on our door for repayment. The third brother's wife, Su Hongwan, quietly added fuel to the fire. What if they spend all that borrowed money and his leg still doesn't heal? What if he ends up like old Wu's son at the village entrance, leg aching every rainy day, getting infected in the heat, medicine costs draining the family dry? We'd all be dragged down. That comparison hit Grandma hard. Old Wu's family had been ruined by medical bills. She sat there frowning, saying nothing. The third wife leaned closer and whispered, Mom, why not just split the second branch off? That way the rest of us won't be dragged into their debt. Gu Xiaolan actually agreed with this, but then she suddenly remembered her scheme. She slapped her thigh. Wait, with all this commotion, where's Chushua? Has anyone seen her? If the family split before she could force the marriage with her nephew, she'd lose control of my future completely. The plan had to happen before any split. Grandma realized it too. That useless girl. We sent her to deliver a message, and she just disappeared. Gu Xiaolan pretended to check my room and came back with a dramatic announcement. Mom, she didn't come home at all last night. Grandma was already furious at our branch and didn't catch the hint. Girls are nothing but trouble. Can't even run a simple errand. Better if the wolves got her. She said this loudly enough that the villagers gossiping nearby heard every word clearly. Gu Xiaolan saw her opening. Mom, maybe we should get the village to send people up the mountain to search for her. If something really happened, we don't want a second branch blaming us. The neighbor next door, Li Guizhi, a woman who had never liked Gu Xiaolan, stuck her head over the wall. If anything happened to that girl, it's on you, Gu Xiaolan. You're the one who insisted she skip school and cross the mountain yesterday. I heard every word of it. Gu Xiaolan didn't flinch. Mind your own business. Li Guizhi shot back. I'm just being fair. Why are you getting so worked up? Gu Xiaolan played innocent and raised her voice for everyone to hear. Mom, I'm going to find the village chief and organize a search party. I'd hate for my good intentions to be misunderstood if something went wrong. Without waiting for Grandma's response, she rushed out the gate. This was her move, get people to find me on the mountain supposedly having spent the night out and destroy my reputation. But what she didn't know was that multiple people had seen me at school, at the clinic, and at the village last night. Her trap was about to snap shut on herself. While the village search party headed up the mountain, Gu Xiaolan kept poisoning everyone's ears along the way. A young girl not coming home all night. How could we let her cross the mountain alone? What if her future in-laws find out? She was doing everything she could to destroy my reputation before they even found me. The village chief finally snapped at her. Can you stop running your mouth? This isn't the time. She pretended to agree and shut up, satisfied that her words had already done their damage. But as they climbed higher and higher, nearly reaching the point where they could see the north suburb farm below, they found nothing. No sign of me, and more importantly for Gu Xiaolan, no sign of her nephew Gu Baocheng. She started panicking. Without him appearing at the right moment to discover me, her whole scheme fell apart. She couldn't exactly lead everyone to the cave herself without looking suspicious. Meanwhile, back in the village, things had exploded, exactly as I planned. Grandma had gathered the third wife and several grandchildren to corner Mom as she went from house to house borrowing money. You shameless woman. Can't even produce a son. And now you dare defy your elders? Who gave you permission to embarrass this family? Before we left that morning, I had told Mom clearly, ignore everything, don't hold back, and just keep going. Today's goals were simple: borrow money, push towards splitting the family, and, if possible, cut ties completely. The louder the better. The villagers weren't about to miss this kind of show. Nobody rushed off to work that morning. On the other side of things, my sister and I had made our way to the reservoir construction site. It took a lot of talking to get in front of the people in charge, but I laid out our case directly. I understand the accident happened outside of official work hours, and I respect your position. But my father was hurt on your site. His leg can't wait any longer, and our family won't help pay. We have nowhere else to turn. The leaders looked uncomfortable, but could see I had a point. What exactly are you asking for? I was ready. The clinic says he needs to go to a city hospital. I've already checked with the county hospital doctor, and they agree he should go straight to the city for proper treatment. Could you advance us part of the compensation money now so we can get him admitted? We'll keep all receipts, and once your share is used up, we'll settle accounts with documentation. Would that work? The leaders huddled together to discuss it. I heard one of them mutter, "This girl is something else." Fearless. The construction site leaders talked it over and decided my proposal made sense. Advancing us money meant the patient could get treated quickly, our family could buy time to raise more funds, and they wouldn't technically be breaking any rules. I signed the paperwork at the finance office and walked out with 100 yuan. It was less than I'd hoped for, but it was enough to get Dad admitted to a city hospital and start treatment. I'd figure out the rest later. My sister was still in a daze as we left. We actually got the money? Just like that? I nodded without slowing down. There was still a battle waiting for us back in the village. She jogged to keep up. But Mom said treatment could cost 2 or 300 yuan. What happens after this 100 runs out? I explained that this was just an advance. Once the total costs passed 200, the construction site would continue covering their half. So future bills would still be split. She understood, but her face stayed heavy. Even half the costs would be hard for us to afford. I tried to reassure her. The families we visited yesterday are on good terms with our parents. They'll probably lend us something. Add Dad's secret savings, and we can manage for a while. After that, we take it one step at a time. Before we even entered the village, we could hear shouting. We broke into a run. Mom's furious voice carried through the air. How can you, as her own aunt by marriage, say things like that to destroy your niece's reputation? Gu Xiaolan's voice shot back. I was just worried about her. I misspoke. Misspoke? You were trying to ruin her. How can your heart be so cruel? Who are you calling cruel? Here's what had happened while we were gone. The search party had gone up the mountain but found no trace of me. They sent 2 people to check with my sister's in-laws at the north suburb farm while the rest headed back. Gus Xiaolan returned to the village and discovered Mom was still going around borrowing money. Grandma had already mobilized the family to try stopping her. When Gus Xiaolan arrived, she immediately started shouting about how I hadn't come home all night, her big move to destroy my reputation. But Mom wasn't the pushover she used to be. For the first time ever, she fought back against Gus Xiaolan directly. Just as things were about to get physical, Gus Xiaolan was reaching out to shove Mom. My voice rang out from behind the crowd. "Mom, what's going on?" Everyone turned and saw me. The village exploded with chatter. Some troublemaker who loved drama called out immediately. "Chushua, your aunt said you didn't come home last night. Where were you?" I ignored the nosy villager's question and pushed through the crowd straight to Mom's side. I looked Gus Xiaolan dead in the eye. "Andy, have you gotten addicted to bullying our branch? You think just because my father is hurt and can't be here, there's nobody to protect us? How dare you talk to your elder like that? Am I wrong? Do you even deserve to be called an elder? What kind of elder destroys her own niece's reputation?" 3 questions, one after another. She had no answer. The crowd started murmuring in agreement. The girl's right. No matter what, Chushua is her niece. What she did today is disgraceful. Grandma suddenly realized her daughter-in-law had gone too far, though for the wrong reasons. She didn't know about the kidnapping plot. She was just thinking that if my reputation was ruined, the Chin family wouldn't pay a good bride price. That would ruin her own plans to cash in on my marriage. She tried to smooth things over. "Chushua, don't take your aunt's words to heart. She was just worried about you, but didn't express it well. If I hadn't snuck back to the house last night and overheard Grandpa's true feelings about our branch, I might have actually been touched by that. But I knew exactly what these people were. I needed this fight to get bigger, not smaller. Today has really opened my eyes," I said loudly enough for the whole crowd to hear. "Grandma, you brought the whole family out to stop my mother from borrowing money. Andy tried to ruin my name. You're all working together to make sure our branch has no way to survive." The villagers buzzed again. "She's right. They won't pay for his treatment, and they won't let his wife borrow money? What kind of parents are these? They always said they treated all 3 sons equally, but now the truth comes out. If it were the eldest or 3rd son, they'd never act like this." Grandpa arrived just in time to hear the gossip. His face went dark as iron. "What are you all standing around for? Get inside. Stop embarrassing this family." He stormed back toward the house. He was furious, not at the injustice, but at how badly Grandma and Gus Xiaolan had handled things publicly. The family's reputation was ruined now, but as he walked, I could see him thinking. He was already calculating his next move. Since the embarrassment had already happened, he might as well push it further, split our branch off, and get rid of what he considered dead weight. Before, he'd kept us around so our parents could help raise the grandchildren. But with Dad injured, we were no longer useful. Cutting us loose was now the better deal for him. The villagers followed the drama right to our front gate, eager for more. Grandma cursed all the way into the courtyard and glared at the 3 of us. Mom, my sister, and me. "Close that gate and get in here." But before she could say anything else, Grandpa's voice cut through the air with cold authority. "Ruhua, go to the fields and call your father and your 3rd uncle back home." His granddaughter from the 1st branch didn't dare refuse when she saw his face. She ran out immediately. He was calling a family meeting. Things were about to come to a head. Grandma glanced at Grandpa, trying to read his intentions. He said nothing, just walked into the main hall, sat in the head seat, packed his pipe, and smoked while thinking about how to handle this. I brought a bench inside for Mom and my sister. "Sit down." Gus Xiaolan immediately sneered. "After causing such a disgrace, you dare sit?" I wasn't afraid of her. "You're the one who should be ashamed, Auntie. You did things you can't show in daylight and you're lecturing us. You little brat. I'm your elder, then act like one." She turned to Mom for help. "Are you just going to let your daughter talk to me like this?" Mom didn't budge. "I don't see anything wrong with what Chushua said." Grandpa slammed his hand down. "Everyone shut up." Just then, my eldest uncle and 3rd uncle rushed in. They'd been sent to work the family's private plot that morning and had missed all the village drama. Ruhwa had filled them in on the way back. My eldest uncle walked in already pointing fingers at us. Look at the mess you've caused. The whole house is in chaos because of you people. Look how upset Mom and Dad are. I actually laughed. My uncle and his wife really are a perfect match. Equally shameless. His face darkened. Watch your mouth. Is this how a young person speaks to elders? What would the Chin family think if they heard you talking like this? There it was, the threat. Behave or your engagement is at risk. Let them think whatever they want, I said calmly. Should I just stay quiet when people attack me? That would make me a fool, wouldn't it, Uncle? That made him flinch. He knew what his wife had done. He softened his tone quickly. We're family. A few harsh words here, and they don't count as bullying. Your aunt is uneducated. She speaks without thinking. Don't take it personally. How convenient. Blame it all on his wife's loose tongue. I didn't bother responding. Grandpa glanced at the courtyard wall. Villagers were lined up along the top, watching like it was a show. He knew chasing them away would be pointless. He knocked his pipe against his shoe sole hard. You all know what happened today. So talk. Mom spoke first. My husband's leg can't wait. I begged the family, and nobody would help. So I went to borrow money on my own. Is that wrong? Gushulan couldn't contain herself, shaking off her daughter-in-law who tried to hold her back. You want to save him, fine, but we haven't split the family yet. All that borrowed money, whose debt is it? Don't you have any conscience? My husband got hurt working for this family. Plenty of men went to that construction site. Nobody else got injured. That's not our fault. He's just useless. I'd had enough of this circus. I stepped forward and looked straight at my grandparents. Grandpa, Grandma, this isn't the time for arguing. My father needs money to save his leg right now. Whatever you're planning, just say it. Stop making us guess, and don't push me to my breaking point. Grandpa looked at me with what seemed like surprise. He hadn't expected me to be the calmest person in the room. He took a deep breath and made his choice. We simply don't have the ability to help. Mom's voice broke. Father, is Jiandong's job really more important than my husband's leg? His face hardened. The doctor said even a city hospital can't guarantee a full recovery. The family has to look forward. When Jiandong succeeds, the whole family benefits. I swallowed my anger and pressed on. Fini. That's your choice, and we accept it. We'll handle things ourselves. But then why did Grandma chase after Mom and try to stop her from borrowing money? Is that how a mother treats her own son? Then I threw out my real weapon, watching his face carefully. It makes me wonder if my father is even your biological son. I said it on purpose. His eyes flickered with panic for just a second before he covered it up. Your grandmother was confused. She was just worried about Jiandong's job opportunity. Old fox. But I wasn't letting him change the subject. So you're saying you agree to let us borrow money on our own? I asked. He hadn't expected me to be this relentless. If you want to try, the family won't stop you. I pushed harder immediately. Then will the family's shared funds help repay what Mom borrows or not? I wanted him to answer in front of all those villagers peering over the courtyard wall. I was forcing the Liu family to be the ones who brought up splitting, not us. Grandma jumped in first. You borrowed it yourselves. Why should the family pay it back? So, you're confirming that you're abandoning my father, leaving him to fend for himself. Gushilon, terrified that Grandpa might cave under the public pressure, added, your father's leg will be a bottomless pit of expenses. The family can't pour everything into one person. Then the third aunt, Su Hongwan, made her carefully timed move, pretending to be helpful. Sister-in-law, your husband's leg really can't wait. Why not just split off and live on your own? That way you can make your own decisions without wasting time arguing here. Grandma quickly shot Gushilon a look. Gushilon caught the signal and played her part perfectly, pretending to object. Third sister-in-law, what are you saying? If we split the second branch off at a time like this, the whole village will call us heartless. I knew Gushilon actually wanted to delay the split. Her nephew's marriage scheme had fallen apart now that I'd shown up perfectly fine with my sister, but she still wanted to control my future. However, the momentum was too strong now. She had no choice but to go along with it. Mom heard the two sisters-in-law go back and forth and understood. The trap had worked. The reason she hadn't rushed to demand the split herself was exactly this. She needed everyone, especially the villagers watching from the wall, to see clearly that it was the Liu family pushing us out, not us being ungrateful children. The goal was reached. Now it was time to negotiate the terms. Just like I'd told her, we had to use this moment to settle everything clearly with the Liu family. Only then could we live in peace going forward. Time to act. I lowered my head, took a deep breath, and when I looked up, my eyes were full of tears. Father, is this really what you want? Grandpa put on a pained expression, as if this decision was tearing him apart. It made all three of us, Mom, my sister, and me, sick to watch. But none of us offered him a way to save face. My eldest uncle actually didn't want us to split off. Before Dad's injury, both my parents earned full work points, and since our branch had no sons, all that labor would eventually benefit his children anyway. But the situation had spiraled beyond his control. Grandpa dropped the act. Don't blame the family. We can only look forward. Since you want to take your chances, I'll let you split off. Whatever happens to your branch after this, good or bad, don't come blaming us. That was exactly what Mom wanted to hear. Even if Dad ended up crippled and life got hard, it would be better than living under their roof, being mocked and controlled every day. All these years, the grandparents had been experts at looking fair in public. But privately, every time there was a benefit to distribute, they'd remind us that we had no sons and should be grateful to our nephews. My parents' only real victory had been keeping us three girls in school. Dad had to threaten to stop working extra hours, matching exactly what his brothers did, before the grandparents finally agreed. The other branches' children got schooling without question. Ours had to fight for it. The reason Grandpa agreed to the split so easily was obvious. Dad could no longer earn full work points, and they were terrified our medical debts would drag them down. We'd gone from being useful to being a burden overnight. Grandpa was so eager to finalize things that he almost sent my cousin Jiandong to fetch the village leaders, then thought better of it and sent my eldest uncle instead. What they were doing wasn't exactly honorable. Better to have the eldest son handle it. My uncle hesitated. Dad, isn't it too soon? Grandpa lowered his voice. You think waiting until his leg fails and then splitting us off will look better? Besides, didn't you say Jiandong's job is almost secured? Once the money's in place, he starts immediately. Who do you think I'm doing this for? Uncle understood, but he was worried. Splitting meant losing control over our branch, and that unfinished business, whatever deal they'd made involving me, would be harder to pull off. But Grandpa had decided, so he'd have to find another way later. In his mind, his son's future mattered far more than his niece's. Soon, the village chief, the party secretary, and the women's director all arrived at the house. The secretary frowned the moment he walked in. Old Five, your son says you want to split the family. Have you lost your mind? Village tradition held that families shouldn't split while parents were still alive. Some families did it, but it was rare and looked down upon. And doing it while Dad was lying injured in a hospital bed, even the secretary, who was a distant relative, couldn't stomach it. But Grandpa had committed. He was beyond caring about shame. He put on a dignified voice. As the saying goes, when a tree grows tall, its branches spread. When sons grow up, they start their own families. We're old now, can't manage things anymore. Better to split now than let the brothers grow resentful and ruin their bond. What beautiful words. As if splitting the family right now, with Dad injured and helpless, wasn't already ruining every bond there was. The sheer thickness of his skin was truly impressive. The party secretary had never liked Grandpa. He knew exactly what kind of person he was. He'd watched my father grow up and knew Dad was a good, honest man. All right, Old Five, he said. Tell us how you plan to divide things. Grandpa pretended to think for a moment. We never saved much money raising this big family. Besides the house and grain, there's not much to split. The second branch can keep the room they've been living in. Grain will be divided by head count. We can't spare an iron pot, so they'll get 2 clay pots. Bowls and chopsticks by the number of people. 1 room. 2 clay pots. For an entire branch of the family. The village chief spoke up before Mom could explode. Old Liu, is your second son even your real child? You won't share money, fine. But giving them only one room? Where are your two granddaughters supposed to sleep? Grandma jumped in. Girls get married off eventually. The second branch has no sons. Why do they need so many rooms? Mom's eyes burned red. What did my husband ever do wrong for you to humiliate him like this? The secretary's face darkened. Old 5, your second son has worked full hours in the village and taken extra jobs outside during every off-season. This division isn't fair. Grandpa, embarrassed at being called out by his own clan elder, scrambled for an excuse. Jiandong will need a wedding room soon. And when the second branch gets old, they'll have to rely on their nephews anyway since they have no sons. Giving the room to Jiandong now is just doing it sooner rather than later. Mom completely lost it. What kind of father curses his own son to die without heirs? Is Shanliang even your real child? Her voice was so loud it nearly knocked the villagers off the wall they were sitting on. She didn't let Grandpa respond. If you're splitting us off like this, throwing us away, then we shouldn't have to support you in your old age either. You're the ones who abandoned your own son first. Grandma erupted.
How dare you?
Tomorrow I'll tell my son to divorce you. This family doesn't need a troublemaking, ungrateful wretch like you. That crossed my line. Grandma, you were the heartless ones first. My father is still lying in a hospital bed right now, and you're standing here twisting everything around. How can you say these things with a straight face? Grandpa turned on me, furious. You little brat, who said you could open your mouth? Grandma glared at me like she wanted to eat me alive. Get out of my sight. I knew the fire was just right. Our branch has no boys. That's a fact. My sister is married. My younger sister is too small. The only strong worker we had is lying injured in a hospital. If I don't stand up and speak, who will? Should we just let people trample all over us? Grandpa laughed bitterly. Who would have thought that blockhead son of mine could produce such a sharp-tongued daughter? Your wings aren't even grown yet, and you're already talking back to your elders. Mom quickly took over. She didn't want them turning their anger on me and damaging my reputation. It's easy to ignore pain when the needle isn't poking you. If it were your own father lying in that hospital, you'd be going just as crazy. Grandpa could see we'd come prepared. He wanted this over quickly.
Fine.
You're not getting any money. But tell me, how do you think the house should be divided? Grandma tried to protest, but he shut her up with a glare. Mom was smart enough not to fall into his trap of making us propose terms he could then reject. She turned to the village officials instead. I'm just a simple woman. I don't understand these things well. Please decide what's fair. The secretary, village chief, and women's director exchanged looks. Since the secretary was a Liu family elder, the others let him take the lead. He'd clearly been thinking about it during all the arguing. Old 5, your second son may not have sons, but he has 3 daughters. He and his wife have earned full work points for this family for years. Giving them just one room isn't right. After a lot of back and forth between the secretary and my grandparents, they finally reached an agreement. Grandpa just wanted it over with. The humiliation was killing him. Third son swap rooms with the second branch, he ordered. The third aunt objected immediately. Why should we have to move? That's so much trouble. Grandpa snapped at her. Do what I say. Have I ever shortchanged you? Then he laid out the full division for everyone. The Liu family compound had 5 main rooms, 2 east wing rooms, 2 west wing rooms, and 4 south rooms. The first and third branches each got 2 main rooms. Our branch got 1. After the grandparents passed away, their room would go to the first branch, and the central hall would go to the third. The east wing went to the first branch. The west wing, 2 rooms, went to us. The 4 south rooms were split between the first and third branches, 2 each. The third aunt shut up fast. 2 main rooms plus 2 south rooms was far more than what we got. She and her husband exchanged a glance and nodded. No objections. The first branch had even less reason to complain. They got the most of anyone. We agree. Whatever father decides. I leaned close to Mom and whispered a few words. Mom spoke up. We have no objections to the rooms. But I have one question. What about the front gate and the kitchen? Everyone froze. The south side facing our main room was half kitchen, half main entrance gate. Now that we were splitting into separate households, We'd each need our own courtyard walls and doors. We couldn't all keep using the same gate. My eldest uncle frowned. What are you getting at? Mom stood firm. We're separate families now. We'll each need our own enclosed yard eventually. I need to know what belongs to whom. The secretary glanced outside and agreed. She had a fair point. Our main room faced the kitchen and gate. If we were truly splitting, we needed our own entrance. The other two branches understood the logic, but didn't like the idea of tearing things apart to build new doorways. But we'd put the issue on the table in front of witnesses. They couldn't ignore it. The secretary pushed the issue of the gate and kitchen. For now, the second branch can use the main gate. But long-term, you can't expect them to leave a passageway through their yard for everyone else. The third aunt panicked. Our branch already got less than the first branch. We can't end up worse than the second branch, too. I gave the Liu family a grandson, they didn't. If you give them the gate and kitchen, both our branch and the first branch would have to tear walls open for new entrances. And where would the parents cook? I glanced at the secretary. Getting the gate and kitchen would have been ideal, but it wasn't worth fighting over. My real goal was freedom from the Liu family. As for the house, it was temporary anyway. Once I had money, I'd build somewhere else. I didn't want to live next door to these people forever. I whispered my thoughts to Mom, and she agreed. We won't fight over the gate or kitchen, she announced graciously. When we build our courtyard wall later, we'll leave a passageway for the family to get through. We don't want to make things difficult for Father. It sounded generous, but really we just couldn't waste any more time. Dad's leg couldn't wait. We needed to catch the noon bus to the city. With that settled, everything else fell into place quickly. For the grandparents' elder care, the village officials set standard terms. Starting next year, we'd pay 10 yuan annually and provide 200 caddies of grain, with at least 20 caddies being fine grain. We agreed without argument. I wrote up the family division document myself. I made sure everyone signed, not just the grandparents, but my eldest uncle and third uncle too. The secretary, village chief, and women's director all signed as witnesses. Everything was legally binding. Grandma tried to demand more, but the secretary shut her down with one sentence. Shanliang isn't your only son. I also brought up the work points our branch had earned this year. The Liu family didn't want to give them up, but the secretary settled it immediately. The accountant will calculate the second branch's share separately. That's how every family split works. Mom raised the issue of our private farming plot, and the officials promised to allocate one for us soon. With everything done, I turned on the charm and called out to all the villagers watching from the wall. Uncle this, Annie that, big brother, sister-in-law. With so many hands helping, we swapped rooms with the third branch in less than half an hour. We dumped our share of belongings inside, told my youngest sister Chun Xiao to watch the house, and asked the neighborly Guizhi to keep an eye on her. Mom got the secretary to write us a letter of introduction, and the three of us rushed out of the village. Once we were past the village entrance, the tension finally eased. My sister let out a long sigh. Chushue, I can't believe you actually called it. Everything happened exactly like you said. They both looked upset, so I tried to cheer them up. Don't be sad. Getting out of that family is the best thing that could have happened to us. Mom shook her head. I'm not sad about the split. I've been dreaming of this day for years. I'm worried about your father's leg. Without another word, all three of us picked up our pace. My sister's eyes flashed with anger as we walked. Chushue, are we really just letting Auntie get away with what she did? Mom looked guilty. She wanted justice for me, but had no evidence beyond my word. I smiled. The only reason I didn't bring it up today is because I don't have time to deal with her right now. She tried to destroy me, there's no way I'm letting that go. What I didn't say out loud was my plan. Since Gu Xiulan liked playing dirty, I'd give her a taste of her own medicine. And since I'd be in the city with Dad for treatment, anything that happened to the Liu family in the meantime couldn't possibly be blamed on me. I'm not the forgiving type. Gu Xiulan and her nephew took the original Liu Chushua's life. That debt would be repaid. As for the rest of the Liu family, the split was only step one. I had plenty of patience. Meanwhile, in a small courtyard house in Chongping County, the Qin family was having their own conversation, though I only learned the details later. Old Mr. Qin, The grandfather my father had once saved from a wolf brought up his grandson Chun Weiping's marriage. The boy turns 20 next month. It's time to go to Willow Tree Village and set a wedding date. His son, Chin Jiefeng, hesitated. Dad, young people want to choose for themselves these days. Weiping is strongly against this arranged marriage. Maybe we should drop it. The old man slammed his hand on the table. You ungrateful fool. If Shanliang hadn't risked his life to save me, I'd be dead. You agreed to this engagement back then. Now that the girl is old enough, you want to back out? Chin Jiefeng was caught in the middle. His wife looked down on village girls, and his son had already told him he'd handle it himself. All he could do was stall. Let's wait until Weiping gets back from his business trip. Outside the door, Chin Weiping's mother was eavesdropping. She scoffed quietly. The old man owes them a debt, but he wants my son to pay for it? Not a chance. She slipped back to the kitchen, thinking to herself, I wonder if those people manage to take care of things. If not, I'll have to go to the countryside and handle it myself before my son gets back. So that confirmed it. The Chun family mother was connected to the plot against me. She was the one who had reached out to Gush Xilan's people to ruin my reputation, so her son would have a reason to break the engagement. Back at the clinic, my brother-in-law had already finished all the paperwork for Dad's transfer. Everything was ready for us. My sister looked worried. Mom, Chushua, you should let Xiaofeng go with you to the city. Dad needs a man to help carry him and handle things on the road. Mom understood, but my sister and her husband had already been away from home overnight. If he went to the city too, they'd have a hard time explaining things to his family. She couldn't be that selfish. Mom didn't want my sister and brother-in-law to get in trouble with his family. They'd already been away overnight. Just get us on the bus and head back to the farm. We'll manage in the city. If we need help, we'll hire someone. I agreed. That pregnant sister-in-law at the Chiu household was trouble enough without giving her more ammunition. Listen to Mom on this one, I told my sister. I asked my sister to borrow Uncle Seven's bicycle so my brother-in-law could wheel Dad to the bus stop. She ran off and came back not just with the bicycle but with Uncle Seven himself. He hurried over to help get Dad settled. Then, he pulled 20 yuan from his pocket and pressed it into Mom's hand. It's a long trip to the city, and you'll need money. Take this. I was genuinely moved. 20 yuan was a lot for anyone in the village, let alone a man living alone. Mom hesitated. She felt terrible taking money from an elderly man, but he insisted. I'm doing all right. Just take it. I could see we were running out of time. Mom, this is Grandpa Seven's kindness and we really do need it. We'll pay him back and take good care of him when things get better. That touched the old man. His son was in the army and his daughter had married far away. He was all alone. We hurried toward the road where the bus to the city would pass. We had about 20 minutes before it arrived. As we passed my high school, my parents exchanged guilty looks. With my older sister married and my younger sister too small, I was the only one who could go to the city with them. But that meant missing classes right before graduation. My sister pulled me aside. Chushua, maybe I should go instead. You're about to graduate. If you miss too much school, you won't get your diploma. I glanced at her husband pushing the bicycle ahead of us. You know your in-law's situation better than I do. If you skip work for several days, that sister-in-law of yours will make everyone's life miserable, she sighed. I wish I hadn't married so early. Mom overheard us. Stop talking nonsense. Your sister and I will handle this. You take care of your own family. Then she added silently in her heart. She blamed herself for not giving Dad a son. When trouble came, boys could shoulder the burden. Her daughters were being forced to carry weight they shouldn't have to. We reached the road just in time. The bus pulled up and a couple sitting near the door saw Dad's condition and immediately gave us their seats. I thanked them, got my parents settled, and called out the window. Sis, brother-in-law, we're off. Don't forget to return the bicycle to Grandpa Seven. The bus pulled away before I could say anything more. Back in Willow Tree Village, Grandma was already confronting Grandpa on the heated brick bed. We agreed we wouldn't split the family. Why did you give in? Back in Willow Tree Village, though I only pieced this together later, the family drama continued without me. Grandpa defended his decision to Grandma. You saw how she was today. You think she would have backed down? Better to cut them loose now than let them drag the whole family into debt. Grandma was still bitter. Chushua is about to graduate. Couldn't we have waited a few more months? We agreed her bride price would pay for Jiandong's wedding. Grandpa tucked his pipe into his belt. You can't have everything. We didn't pay a single coin for Shanliang's treatment. Do you think the second branch would have let you touch that bride price money? Besides, once Jiandong gets his city job, plenty of good girls will be lining up to marry him. That cheered Grandma up. But what she didn't know was that Jiandong's job opportunity was just a carrot Gu Xiaolan and her husband had dangled. Without completing the task they'd been assigned, ruining me, there would be no job. Out in the fields, Gu Xiaolan was whispering to her husband, "My eldest uncle, your father just split them off without even consulting us. What about Jiandong's job now?" Uncle's face was sour. "How did you mess this up? You said it was foolproof. How did that girl show up perfectly fine?" Gu Xiaolan glanced around nervously. "I drugged her and left her on the mountain. I have no idea how she got back. She made sure not to mention her nephew's involvement or the marriage scheme. Some things were better kept from her own husband." Uncle exhaled heavily. "What's done is done. We'll find another chance. She has to come back eventually." Just then, someone shouted from across the field. "Xiaolan, someone from your family is here." A young man came running toward them. It was her nephew, Gu Baocheng. Gu Xiaolan's heart dropped. She hadn't seen him all morning, which already worried her. "Auntie, we've been robbed," he panted. "What?" "Grandma's room, the kitchen, the backyard. Someone cleaned us out. Grandma found out yesterday evening and fainted from the shock. The whole house was in chaos. She only woke up this morning, and everyone's worried she'll do something drastic. They sent me to bring you home." Gu Xiaolan's face went white. "Nobody was home yesterday afternoon. How could we get robbed?" I have to admit, hearing about this later gave me a certain satisfaction. That robbery was my handiwork, of course. Payment for what they did to the original Lu Chushua. Gu Xiaolan's precious family home, cleaned out while her nephew napped through the whole thing. Sometimes karma works fast, especially when it has a little help. While we were on our way to the city, things were falling apart at the Gu family household, exactly as I'd planned. Gu Baocheng didn't dare admit to his aunt that he'd been sleeping like a log while the robbery happened. He hadn't heard a single sound. His grandmother had only discovered the theft when she came home from chatting with neighbors and went to cook dinner. With his uncle by marriage standing right there, confessing he'd been napping through it all would have been humiliating. So he just urged Gu Xiaolan to hurry home. She rushed to Gu village and heard the wailing before she even stepped through the door. "Heaven help me. Which devil stole everything? I curse you. May your children be born deformed. May your whole family die horrible deaths." Gu Xiaolan found her mother lying on the brick bed with a wet rag on her forehead, crying her eyes out. The old woman was genuinely devastated. No acting involved. "They cleaned out everything valuable from my room, took things from the kitchen, and even stole our 2 chickens. How are we supposed to live?" Gu Xiaolan looked around. The room was stripped bare. Even the bedding was gone. Nothing left except the tattered mat her mother was lying on. "Did you call the village officials?" she asked. That made her mother even angrier. "They came, found nothing, and wouldn't even let us report it to the police. Said it would hurt the village's reputation and they needed to investigate internally first." Her eldest brother was out searching with village officials at the homes of known troublemakers. Her second brother had gone to the commune to fetch her younger sister's husband, hoping someone with authority could pressure the officials into a real investigation. Gu Xiaolan stared at the emptied room in disbelief. What kind of thief steals even the bedding off the bed? Her mother started sobbing harder. "You don't even know the worst part. Just yesterday morning, I traded for over 10 caddies of cotton to make bedding for Baocheng's future wife. And now some thief has it all." Then she broke into a howling lament, calling on heaven to strike the thief dead with lightning. Gu Xiaolan spent all her energy calming the old woman down. But the moment her mother caught her breath, she grabbed Gu Xiaolan's arm. "The family barely had any savings before this. Now, we definitely can't afford a bride for Baocheng. That plan of yours, you'd better make it work." Gu Xiaolan thought about what had happened that morning, how I'd shown up perfectly fine, how the family had split, and winced. "It's going to be difficult." Her mother's eyes went wide with fury. "You're his aunt. You promised. The family's been robbed blind. If we can't get our things back, you wanted to stay single forever? I wasn't there to see any of this, of course. But knowing that Gushiolan was being squeezed from both sides, her scheme in ruins and her family's stolen goods never coming back, gave me a deep sense of satisfaction. Every item sitting safely in my magical space was well-deserved payback. While I was on my way to the city with my parents, Gushiolan was at her mother's house dealing with the aftermath of my visit. She tried to explain the situation.
Mom, you don't understand.
My in-laws refused to pay for the second brother's treatment, so his wife went crazy, borrowing money all over the village, making a huge scene. My father-in-law got so angry, he split the second branch off from the family. Her mother panicked.
Split?
If they've split off, how can you help Baoqing marry that girl? Gushiolan sent her nephew outside to guard the door, then leaned close and whispered her new plan. The whole second branch, except the youngest girl, has gone to the city for the hospital. As long as we ruin Chushua's reputation while they're away, the Qin family will keep their promise about the job. We just need to spread the story that she was out all night, which is technically true. By the time she comes back, even 100 mouths won't be able to explain it away. Her mother frowned. But that still doesn't get Baoqing a wife. Gushiolan had thought of that too. Once her reputation is destroyed, no decent family will want her. And we're still living in the same compound. With me keeping an eye on things, Baoqing will get his chance sooner or later. It's just a matter of time. They'd barely finished their scheming when shouting erupted outside. The Gu family's eldest son was arguing with the village chief about the robbery. The village chief had stopped them from reporting to the police, saying it would hurt the village's reputation. He wanted to handle it internally first, but after searching half the village, they'd found absolutely nothing. Not a single clue. The chief had a theory. The thief had to be someone from the village because there was no way that much stuff, furniture, bedding, cotton, chickens, even firewood and building stones, could have been carried out without the old folks sitting by the village entrance noticing. Gushiolan's second brother arrived with their younger sister and her husband. Any leads? He asked. The eldest brother shook his head grimly. The younger sister turned on the village chief, her voice sharp. You're the one who stopped us from calling the police. If our things are found, are you going to pay us back? The chief's face darkened. I was trying to protect the village's reputation. Watch your tone. Meanwhile, I was sitting comfortably on a bus heading to the city, every stolen item tucked safely inside my magical space. The beauty of it was that no one would ever find a single trace.
No footprints, no cart tracks, no witnesses.
The thief had simply thought, collect, and walked away. Let them search the whole village. They'd never figure it out. Back in Gu village, as I found out later, things were getting worse for the Gu family. Gushiolan's younger sister, Gushioqiao, was married to a man who worked at the commune's government committee. She wasn't shy about throwing his status around. She turned on the village chief without hesitation. You say you're protecting the village's reputation, but maybe you're just stalling to give the thief time to hide the evidence. Maybe you even know who did it. The chief's wife dragged her husband away. You exhaust yourself trying to help these people, and this is the thanks you get? Let's go home. We're done here. The chief had only wanted to handle things quietly. If a villager was responsible, he figured they could confront the person privately, make them return everything, and avoid a scandal that could hurt the village's reputation for years. But after being insulted like that, he gave up.
Fine.
Do whatever you want. Gushioqiao sent her brother to the commune to file a report with the police. And the police did come quickly. Her husband's position made sure of that. But after a thorough investigation, they found exactly what the village chief had found. Nothing.
No footprints, no cart tracks, no witnesses, no clues whatsoever.
The villagers couldn't resist talking. Funny how the thief robbed only the Gu family and nobody else. And who could move that many heavy building stones in such a short time? Maybe the Gu family did something terrible and heaven is punishing them. The Gu family went from being victims to being the subject of ridicule. They were furious, but there was nothing they could do about it. Gushioqiao had to invoke her husband's authority just to get people to quiet down. I had no time to think about any of that. I was on the bus to the city. After making sure my parents were comfortable in the front seats, I found a spot in the back, closed my eyes, and pretended to rest. In reality, I sent my consciousness into my space. Looking at those bare, empty fields, I sorted through the things I'd collected from the Go household. Among the grain and supplies, I found seeds, corn, sorghum, wheat, soybeans, green beans, red beans, black beans, peanuts, and even some cotton seeds. There were also sweet potatoes, and various vegetable seeds. Not bad at all. I got to work right away. In my past life, I'd spent plenty of time at a friend's farm for fun. I had a good memory. Once I did something, I remembered how. Combined with the original Lu Chishua's farming knowledge, I picked things up quickly. I divided the land into sections and planted everything according to a plan. The best part was the time difference. 4 hours passed inside the space for every 1 hour outside. With this advantage, I was confident I could pull our family out of poverty fast. Just as I finished planting, I heard someone on the bus call out for a stop. I pulled my consciousness back and looked out the window, making sure to memorize the route. We were entering the city. On the bus, I chatted with an old man in the back seat who had a thick Beijing accent. I asked him about the different hospitals in the city, and he was happy to tell me everything he knew. By the time we reached the station, I had a clear picture of where to go. After everyone else got off, I went to Dad. "Let me carry you down." He refused. "Just help me walk. I'll manage." Mom was starting to regret turning down my brother-in-law's offer to come with us. But I wasn't going to let Dad be stubborn about this. "Your good leg is swollen like a steamed bun. You know our situation. We don't have money to waste if you make it worse by forcing yourself to walk." That got through to him. He sighed and gave in. We got lucky. The bus driver was a kind man. "Little girl, there are porters up ahead. Stay put. I'll pull the bus forward so you don't have to walk as far." All 3 of us thanked him. When the bus stopped, a crowd of men with carts swarmed over, offering rides. Some had flatbed carts. Others had wheelbarrows. They could smell out-of-towners. The driver leaned out his window with a warning. "Don't let them cheat you. 2 mao at most to get wherever you're going." I wasn't about to let anyone take advantage of us. 2 mao flat rate. Anyone willing? If not, I'll walk further and find someone else. They realized I wasn't easy to fool. Hands shot up everywhere.
Me.
I pointed past the pushy ones to a middle-aged man standing quietly at the back. "You, sir." He looked surprised and pointed at himself. "Me? Yes, you." He grinned and pulled his flatbed cart through the crowd. "Coming through, brothers. Make way." He was a decent, straightforward man. He came over to help Dad. "Here, lean on my shoulder." But Dad could barely move. His broken leg was useless, and his other leg was so swollen that every step was agony. I saw this wasn't going to work. "Just hold the cart steady, sir. I'll handle it." He stepped back, probably thinking we had some system worked out. Then he watched me set Dad down on a stone post, bend down, lift him in my arms, a full-grown man, and place him gently onto the cart. The porter nearly lost his grip on the handles. His eyes went wide. "Good heavens," the other porters erupted. "Never judge a person by their looks. That girl's got more strength than any of us." Mom and Dad stared at me, equally stunned.
Chushua.
"You?" I realized I might have shown a bit too much of my new abilities. I'd need a good excuse for that. My parents noticed my unusual strength, but had the sense not to ask questions in front of so many strangers. I already had an explanation prepared. I couldn't act exactly like the original Lu Chushua forever, so I'd need to gradually reshape how people saw me. But that could wait. Let's focus on what matters right now. The porter asked where we were headed and set off. We reached the hospital around noon. Dad couldn't afford any more delays. The porter was kind enough to help us get Dad inside. I threw politeness aside and shouted through the hallway. Doctor, we need help." Medical staff came running. The nurse in front asked what was wrong, and I explained everything quickly. She frowned with disapproval. "Why did you wait so long to bring him in?" Mom stepped in to explain. "He was taken to our commune clinic right after the accident, but they couldn't treat him. They told us to come here, and it took time to gather money." What she didn't mention was that the only way to get to the city was a bus that passed through once a day. We'd gotten here as fast as humanly possible. The staff seemed to understand our difficulties. Dad was wheeled into the examination room right away. We tried to follow, but a nurse stopped us. Family waits outside. We'll come out if we need you. Soon a nurse came out with a form and a bill. Pay this first. I looked at the amount and my heart sank. After paying this, we'd have almost nothing left for the actual treatment. But there was no choice. We could only take things one step at a time. Mom nervously handed me the bundle she'd been clutching to her chest. The money is hidden in your father's spare shirt pocket, she whispered. I took the bundle, gave her a reassuring look, and ran to the payment window. After completing the admission paperwork, I stared at the few dozen yuan we had left. I sighed quietly, thinking about the costs still to come. I hurried back to the examination room. The doctor had finished and was talking to Mom. He's actually quite lucky. Despite the delay, the broken leg shows no infection, and it doesn't appear that the surrounding nerves were damaged. That's fortunate. The other leg is badly swollen with serious bruising, but no broken bones. We still need to run a few more tests, and once the results come back, we'll schedule surgery as soon as possible. Mom's eyes went red. She pressed her palms together and thanked the doctor over and over. Watching her like that hurt. I held her arm to steady her. Mom, I know you're worried about Dad, but if you collapse, what happens to him? She took a shaky breath. You're right. Having me there to lean on seemed to calm her a little. I know. I guided Mom to a bench nearby. Sit down and rest. You need to save your energy. Dad's going to need you. She nodded quietly. Okay. I'll listen to you. We'd barely sat down when someone rushed past us, then stopped and doubled back. Hey, is that you? I looked up. It was Kong Yizhong, the military man I'd helped in the mountains. I blurted out, "What are you doing here?" Then I remembered and quickly apologized. "I'm sorry, things got chaotic at home, and I forgot to call you." He waved it off. "Don't worry about it. I'm just glad you're safe." What happened? I told him about Dad's leg injury and how we'd just arrived at the hospital. He offered to help right away. "I know some people here. Tell me your father's name, and I'll ask around." I didn't refuse. We were strangers in the city, with no connections. Having someone who knew the hospital could make a real difference. I gave him Dad's information and thanked him. He greeted my mother politely and hurried off. Once he was gone, Mom looked at me, confused. "Who was that? How do you know him?" I hadn't planned on telling her about the cave, but since we'd run into Kong Yizhong, there was no avoiding it. I quietly told her everything, how Gush Xiaolan had drugged me and left me tied up in the mountain cave, and how an injured soldier had stumbled in and cut my ropes before collapsing. Mom went pale. The fear hit her all at once. "Thank God it was a soldier who found you. If it had been some other kind of man," she couldn't finish the sentence. She started shaking with rage, at Gush Xiaolan, at what could have happened. I held her tight.
Mom, ai fine.
Nothing happened. And actually something good came out of it. To calm her down, I reminded her of what she'd seen at the bus station. "You saw how strong I am now. Ever since I woke up in that cave, my strength has been different. Nobody's going to push our family around anymore. Just think of me as your son." She looked at me with concern. But where did all that strength come from? I never noticed it before. I gave her a simple explanation. I was always a bit stronger than I looked, but I never showed it. After what happened in the cave, maybe the danger unlocked something. All I know is I'm much stronger now. I could see she wanted to ask more, but I steered her away from the topic. "Mom, this is a good thing. It means if I ever face danger again, I can protect myself. Right?" She thought about it and agreed. She let it go, and we sat together waiting for news about Dad. Mom spotted medical staff coming toward us and jumped to her feet. "Doctor, are there results?" The doctor, a woman, seemed a little surprised. Apparently, she hadn't expected country folk like us to know the vice director of the hospital. That was Kong Yizhong's doing. He'd pulled strings, and now the vice director himself would perform Dad's surgery. The doctor explained the situation clearly. "It's a comminuted fracture. The bone is broken into pieces, and 2 sections have shifted out of place. We strongly recommend inserting steel pins. That gives the best chance of recovery. If we only use a cast or splints, there could be lasting problems." Mom didn't understand most of the medical terms, but I did. "We'll follow your advice. Please schedule the surgery as soon as possible." The doctor filled out the surgical consent form and handed it over. Sign here. The patient is already being prepared. Mom was so grateful she thanked the doctor over and over. Her handwriting was shaky. She'd only learned to write her name in a basic literacy class, but she managed to sign. We asked where the operating room was and rushed in that direction. We ran into Kong Yizhong on the way. I understood immediately that Dad's fast treatment was because of him.
Thank you so much, I said.
He waved it off. I'm happy I could help. I couldn't help asking about the soldier from the cave. How is he? Kong Yizhong lowered his voice. He's out of danger, but he lost a lot of blood. He's still unconscious. He glanced around to make sure no one was listening, then leaned closer. What you did, saving him, was a major contribution. I've already reported it to my superiors. When the commendation comes through, we'll deliver it to you personally. From the way he spoke, I could tell this was bigger than I'd realized. The soldier, Fu Yanqing, had apparently woken briefly the night before and shared critical intelligence about whatever mission he'd been on, including the location of a hand-drawn map. If I hadn't bandaged his wound and called Kong Yizhong in time, he wouldn't have survived long enough to pass on that information. All their previous efforts would have been wasted, and more lives would have been lost. They owed me, and Kong Yizhong clearly took that seriously. Your father's situation, I've already spoken to people here at the hospital, he added. The doctor just told us. We're really grateful. He smiled. Let's stop thanking each other back and forth. If you don't mind, just call me Brother Kong. And if you ever need anything, don't be shy about asking. I wasn't going to refuse genuine kindness.
Deal.
Brother Kong it is. He had business to attend to and we needed to get to the surgery floor. We said quick goodbyes and went our separate ways. For the first time since arriving in this era, I felt like we might actually have a real ally. Mom glanced at Kong Yizhong's retreating figure and sighed. Good deeds really do bring good luck. If you hadn't risked yourself to help that soldier yesterday, he wouldn't be helping us now. Your father is lucky to have you. We settled in outside the operating room. Mom kept watching nurses come and go, desperate to ask about Dad, but too nervous to speak up. I stopped one for her. Nurse, I'm the family of Lu Shanliang. How is he doing? The nurse's impatient expression softened when she heard the name. Clearly Kong Yizhong's connections had made an impression. Vice Director Sun is performing the surgery personally. Just wait here and don't worry. Kong Yizhong had told me this Vice Director Sun was a leading expert in this field. I made a mental note. When I had the means, I'd find a proper way to thank him. Right now I had nothing worthy to offer, which only made me more determined to develop my space as fast as possible. Meanwhile, as I learned much later, things were happening with the Chen family back in Chongqing County. Old Mr. Chen spotted his grandson, Chen Weiping, near the county textile factory. The young man had just returned from a business trip and was trying to avoid going home. You're back and you weren't coming home, the old man demanded. Chen Weiping made excuses about needing to finish work first, showing his oil-stained hands as proof. The grandfather wasn't buying it. Stop trying to be clever. Come home with me now. Weiping leaned close and whispered, I brought back something special for my trip. I can't let people see it. The old man squinted at him suspiciously, but left first. The moment his grandfather was out of sight, Weiping let out a breath of relief and ran in the opposite direction. He went to a small courtyard and knocked on the door. A young woman named Xiaoru opened it, her eyes already red. He pulled her into a flirtatious embrace the moment he stepped inside. It was obvious they were in a secret relationship, and that this woman was the real reason he wanted nothing to do with his engagement to the original Lu Chuxua. Once they were inside, she wasted no time. She draped her arms around his neck and asked, That thing you promised me, how's it going? So Chen Weiping had a hidden girlfriend and had apparently made her some kind of promise, almost certainly related to breaking off his engagement with me. Between his scheming mother and this woman pulling strings behind the scenes, the Chen family's betrayal ran even deeper than I'd first thought. I didn't witness what happened next with the Chen family, but I eventually learned the full story. Chen Weiping, the man I was supposedly engaged to, was at his secret girlfriend's house. Her name was Xiaoru. He was all over her the moment he walked in, acting playful and flirtatious, clearly infatuated. She steered the conversation to serious matters. What about your engagement to that village girl? He cut her off immediately. She's not my girlfriend. My grandfather arranged that. I never agreed to it. Xiaoru pressed closer to him and played her cards carefully. But your mother won't approve of us either. And you still have that engagement hanging over you. My aunt has given me an ultimatum. If I don't bring a man home soon, she'll arrange a marriage for me herself. Then came the real bombshell. After a lot of crying and hesitation, she finally said it. Wei Ping, I think I'm pregnant. That hit him like a thunderbolt. He nearly dropped her off his lap.
What?
We only did it once. How did this happen? She gave him a hurt look, and he quickly pulled himself together. He knew it was his own fault. He drunk too much that night and lost control. What was done was done. Xiaoru, don't worry. I'll marry you properly, he promised. In his mind, marrying her was the better deal anyway. Her uncle worked in the city government. That kind of connection meant a real future. Much better than marrying a country bumpkin with nothing to offer. I'll speed up the process of breaking the engagement. Just give me a few more days. She buried her face in his chest.
Please hurry.
I can wait, but the baby inside me can't. He suggested they go to the hospital to confirm the pregnancy first, partly for certainty, partly so he'd have leverage when confronting his family. She panicked at the idea. The county is so small. What if someone recognizes me? My reputation would be finished. As she said this, I noticed something the story revealed later. When she turned away from him, the corner of her mouth curved into a tiny smile. She was playing him. Whether she was actually pregnant or just using the claim to force his hand, one thing was clear: Chun Weiping was being manipulated by everyone around him, and he was too foolish to see it. The original Liu Qishua's engagement was under attack from every direction. His mother scheming with Ge Xiulan, his girlfriend pressuring him with a pregnancy, and Weiping himself eager to dump the village girl for someone with better connections. What a family of wolves. Chun Weiping agreed to take Xiaoru to a hospital in the city the next day to confirm the pregnancy. She clung to him sweetly, and he spent the rest of the afternoon with her, completely forgetting his promise to go home to his grandfather. When it got dark, he finally pulled himself away. I'll pick you up first thing tomorrow. Once we have the results, I'll tell my family everything. She walked him to the gate, acting reluctant to let go. The moment he disappeared down the road, she closed the door, touched her stomach, and smiled, the satisfied smile of someone whose plan was working perfectly. Whether or not the Chen family elders agreed didn't matter. As long as she had Weiping wrapped around her finger, she'd get into that family one way or another. Meanwhile, Wei Ying wasn't feeling nearly as confident. The cold night air cleared his head, and the reality of what he'd promised started to sink in. Fear crept in where bravado had been. Back at the hospital, things were going well for us. Dad's surgery was a success. Vice Director's son came out personally to speak with us afterward. He introduced us to a Dr. Jiang. He'll handle your father's follow-up care. If you have any questions, go to him directly. We thanked them both over and over. Then we followed a nurse as Dad was wheeled to a regular ward. The nurse gave us instructions about what to watch for and left. Dad was still unconscious from the anesthesia. Mom, stay with him. I need to go out for a bit. Mom looked worried immediately. This is in the countryside, Qishua. We don't know anyone here. Don't go far. I reminded her gently. Remember how strong I am now. She still wanted to argue, so I gave her the real reason. Vice Director's son said Dad needs good nutrition during recovery. We're going to be here a while. I need to figure out how to make that happen. That silenced her, though tears welled up in her eyes. We barely had enough money for treatment, let alone nutritious food. She blamed herself and Dad for being useless. Just come back soon, she said quietly. Before leaving, I grabbed the big ceramic bowl from our bundle. Let me get some hot water first. The woman in the next bed overheard and kindly told me the hot water boiler was downstairs behind the first floor. I thanked her politely. She smiled and turned to Mom. Your daughter is so pretty and well-mannered. You and your husband must be wonderful parents. Mom's face brightened for the first time all day. We're just simple country people. It's her teachers who deserve the credit. Oh, you're too modest. Mom's voice carried a hint of pride. It's true. My daughter graduates from high school in just half a year. The woman in the next bed kept chatting with Mom. Pretty and educated. You just wait. She'll marry a rich husband someday, and you'll live the good life. Mom smiled but didn't respond.
She didn't dare dream that big.
We were just country folk, and she knew it. Besides, she had no energy for small talk. She grabbed the basin we'd brought and asked where to find water, then started scrubbing down the grimy bed rails. They looked like they'd been touched by hundreds of hands and never properly cleaned. When I came back with hot water, Mom was still wiping everything down. Mom, take a break. Drink some water and eat the dry food from our bundle. She'd been so worried about Dad that she hadn't eaten since morning. The neighbor nudged her again.
See?
Daughters are the most thoughtful. You're a lucky woman. Mom's eyes warmed a little. She finally sat down and started eating after I insisted. You can't take care of Dad if your own body gives out. She looked almost embarrassed, being mothered by her own daughter. I told her I was going out to get familiar with the area, so she wouldn't feel watched while she ate. Don't go far. Come back soon, she called after me. Once outside the hospital, I had a clear goal. Find somewhere to fish. Our situation was desperate. Even if we had money, we'd need ration tickets to buy most food, which we didn't have. The only free source of food I could think of was fish from a river. It would also be a chance to test whether I could collect things directly into my space and maybe stock up for the future. But first, I needed to eat. Our dry rations were limited, and I couldn't eat them all openly. I also needed to prepare some bait. While sorting through the things I'd collected from the go house, I hadn't found the old woman's hidden cash yet, but I'd spotted a few loose bills and ration tickets tucked under her mattress. Enough for now. I went to the state-run restaurant across from the hospital. It wasn't mealtime, so only steamed buns were available. I wanted to buy extras to store in my space, but the grain tickets from the household were nearly used up. I could only afford 6 meat buns. Still, free is free. As for the chaos my little shopping trip had caused at the Go household, that wasn't my problem. As long as they stopped scheming against me, I'd call it even. I found a hidden spot, made sure nobody was around, and slipped into my space. I bit into a big meat bun while planning my next steps. The fishing spot wasn't close, and I couldn't waste time. I ate so fast I nearly choked. I nearly choked on the meat bun from eating too fast. After pounding my chest until I could breathe again, I got to work. First, I went to the little spring-fed pond in my space. I was about to scoop up water with my hands and drink, but I stopped myself. Better to test it first. I went into the house and grabbed a wooden ladle and a small bowl, then found a rough ceramic bowl from the Go family's things. I poured some pond water into the ceramic bowl and looked around for the 2 chickens I'd collected from the Go household. I hadn't seen them since bringing them in. They weren't in the underground storage. Apparently the storage couldn't hold living things. I heard clucking and spotted them on the hillside near those few scraggly trees, the only spot with any greenery. From the Jade Tablet's information, I knew I could control things inside the space with my mind. I tested it by mentally guiding the chickens down to the bowl of water. It actually worked. The chickens drank and seemed perfectly fine afterward. In fact, they looked even more energetic. Satisfied it was safe, I scooped myself a bowl of the pond water. It was cool, clean, and slightly sweet. I couldn't feel any immediate physical changes, but it was incredibly refreshing. I decided to bring some to my parents. Even if the effects were subtle, it certainly couldn't hurt. I got busy. I cleaned a wooden bucket, hauled fresh water from the outer edge of the space, then filled a large pot with pond water and started a fire under it using the Go family's firewood. I'd keep a supply of boiled pond water ready to gradually give my parents. Next came fishing bait. In my past life, I'd gone fishing with clients for work and picked up quite a bit of knowledge. Making bait was simple for me. I whipped up a big bowl of it quickly, tore a pocket off one of the Go family's shirts to use as a pouch, and packed some bait inside. While digging through the pile of collected goods to find materials for a makeshift fishing rod, I accidentally knocked over the old grandmother's sewing basket. A small cloth roll bounced across the floor. I almost tossed it back without thinking, but it felt oddly heavy. I unrolled it and found 9 10-yuan bills hidden inside. 90 yuan, the old woman's secret savings, cleverly tucked inside her sewing basket where nobody would think to look. With this money, I finally felt some of the pressure lift. It wouldn't cover everything, but at least the next round of treatment costs wouldn't feel so desperate. I boiled the pond water in the space kitchen, saved some in the storage to keep warm, and left the rest for later use. Then I packed my fishing supplies into a bucket and left the space. I asked around and took a bus to the city's moat river. When I arrived, there were plenty of people fishing along the banks. I didn't join the crowded spots, partly because my homemade fishing rod was embarrassingly crude, just a stick of firewood with a bent pin and some thread, and partly because a girl fishing alone was an unusual sight. I found a quiet spot, baited my hook with the special bait I'd made using the space's pond water, and cast my line. This was the real test of my theory, that anything touched by the space water would be irresistible to fish. Sure enough, within about 15 minutes, I got my first bite. And it wasn't small, a grass carp weighing around 5 pounds. My flimsy rod couldn't handle a direct pull, so I had to tire the fish out first, walking it back and forth through the water. I kicked myself for not making a net. Finally, I swung it up onto the bank. Not bad at all. I looked at my small bucket and realized I hadn't thought this through. A few fish this size and I'd run out of room. 7 or 8 minutes later, I caught a carp around 3 pounds. The speed of the bites confirmed it. The pond water was truly special. When my third fish bit, an old man fishing nearby couldn't sit still anymore. He jogged over, grinning. "Little girl, your luck is something else. 3 fish in half an hour." Then he noticed my rod and burst out laughing. "Where did you find this thing?" "It's not just the rod. Your line is barely holding together. And you're still catching fish like this? You've opened my old eyes today." He ran back to his spot and returned with a proper landing net. "Here, let me help." I was grateful. This third fish was even bigger, and I'd been worried my rod would snap. Together, we hauled out a black fish weighing 8 or 9 pounds. The old man's eyes lit up. He rubbed his hands together nervously. "So, little girl, could I maybe buy no-weight trade?" "Yes, trade for one of your fish? That big one would be fine." "I'm not greedy." I couldn't help laughing. "Not greedy, but you pick the biggest and best one? You sure know how to bargain, Grandpa." He scratched his head sheepishly. "I just don't want someone else to snatch it first." Right on cue, footsteps approached from down the bank. "Old Xiao, don't you dare hog all the good stuff for yourself." The old men clearly knew each other well. Within seconds, they were all crowding around my bucket, arguing over my fish. Old Xiao, the first one who'd helped me, immediately claimed the big black fish. "I called it first. Don't you dare fight me for it." Another old man, Old Gua, wasn't backing down. "You said you were just helping the girl. Now your true colors come out." Old Xiao dropped the act. Fine, we all know each other. The black fish is mine." End of discussion. Old Gua peered into my bucket and turned to me. "Girl, you going to keep fishing?" I looked at my pathetic homemade rod. "This thing has maybe one more cast left in it before it falls apart." Old Xiao's eyes lit up. He ran to his spot and came back carrying a full set of fishing gear. "Little girl, I love fishing, but I rarely catch anything. This is my old equipment. I bought new stuff, so this became my backup. Today must be fate. How about I trade you this whole set for that big black fish?" I was stunned. Even secondhand, that gear was worth far more than one fish. "I can't take advantage of you like that." He waved me off. "That black fish weighs 8 or 9 pounds. It's not cheap either. This gear is years old and has depreciated plenty. A good bow deserves good arrows, right? It's wasted sitting in my house. Let's both benefit." He made such a reasonable case that refusing would have been rude. "All right then, thank you. And please take the carp too. Consider it a gift of respect from a younger person." "Ha, this girl is generous. I accept." Old Gua jumped in immediately. "Then the grass carp is mine." "Nobody fight me for it." Another old man behind him called out. Fine, but whatever she catches next is mine." I stood there amazed. I hadn't even agreed yet, and these grandfathers had already divided up fish that didn't exist. Old Xiao opened the gear and showed me every piece. The rod, the reel, the line, everything was high quality. You could tell this man came from a well-off family. In an era when most people were still struggling to eat, his hobby gear alone was worth more than many families earned in months. And here he was calling it old junk. One of the others, Old Chi, teased him. Don't worry, girl, the equipment is barely used. He's never actually caught enough fish to wear it out. Everyone burst out laughing. Old Xiao pretended to be annoyed but took it in stride, then patiently started teaching me how to use the proper rod. I couldn't believe my luck. I'd come here hoping to catch a few fish to feed my parents, and I was walking away with professional-grade fishing equipment and a group of wealthy old men fighting to buy whatever I pulled out of the water. Sometimes the universe makes up for the bad days all at once. I baited the new rod, made a smooth cast, and watched the line sail perfectly through the air. Old Xiao gave me a thumbs up, then happily jogged over to transfer his black fish and the carp into his own bucket. Finally, a day I can hold my head high, his friends immediately piled on. Don't tell us you're going to pretend you caught those yourself. Your wife's going to be suspicious. He didn't care one bit. Say what you want. Tonight, I'm eating fish. While they bickered, my line went taut again. Someone signaled for everyone to be quiet. I played the fish back and forth with the proper rod, so much easier than my homemade stick, and with old Zhao's net, we hauled it up. The crowd gasped. Another black fish, even bigger than the last.
Over 10 pounds.
Old Chi rushed over with his bucket before anyone else could move. His voice was trembling with excitement. Girl, do you want money or ration tickets? Tickets, I said without hesitation. Any kind. We'd be in the city for at least 2 weeks, and without tickets you couldn't buy anything in this era. He was generous. He calculated the fish at 12 pounds worth. I agreed. Old Gua paid for his grass carp too, handing over tickets for matches, cloth, soap, and even shoes. Very practical. We're square, I told him. Then came the funny part. Old Chi had claimed the fish first, but forgotten his wallet. He'd changed clothes before coming out, and his pockets were completely empty. Quick, quick. Brothers, who's got tickets? Help me out. After some teasing, everyone chipped in, with old Xiao covering the difference. Old Chi passed me the collection without a hint of embarrassment. I counted through. Sugar, cooking oil, cloth, tofu, grain, salt, noodles, and most precious of all, a meat ticket and 2 industrial coupons. None in large quantities, but together they'd solve our immediate needs perfectly. These old men weren't trading for fish because they were hungry. They had comfortable lives. What they wanted was the thrill and the fun, and I was happy to provide it. I kept fishing and pulled out several more, mostly 2 or 3 pounds each, nothing as dramatic as before. When the bucket held 7 or 8 fish, I stopped. Gentlemen, it's getting late. I need to head back. It was true. Any longer, and Mom would start to worry. The other fishermen who hadn't caught anything all day crowded around, eager to trade for my remaining fish. I kept one for myself and let them pick from the rest. Within minutes, everything was traded away for more tickets. What I didn't notice at first was a group of men watching me from a distance. They'd seen everything, the fish, the trades, the tickets changing hands. I only caught them in the corner of my eye as I bent down to pack up. My heart skipped a beat. I'd been too flashy today and attracted the wrong kind of attention. But then I remembered my strength and the spiritual power from the jade tablet. I wasn't defenseless. I said goodbye to the old men. Old Xiao asked when I'd come back. Hard to say. Whenever I have time. I smiled, nodded, and walked away without looking back. As I walked, I used my spiritual sense to track those men. Sure enough, they were following me. I was annoyed. With them tailing me, I couldn't slip into my space to collect fish from the river. When I turned a corner, they got impatient and stepped out in front of me, blocking my path. The leader had a thuggish swagger. Pretty bold, making money on our turf without permission. You know who we are. I stayed calm. Who are you? Huh? She doesn't even know us. He reached toward my face with a smirk. I blocked him with my bucket. He turned to his gang, laughing. Boys, she wants to know what we want. They all laughed. Someone whistled. He turned back and raised his hand again. You got all those tickets and thought you could just walk away? Let me show you what we... Before he could finish, I kicked him in the stomach. I didn't even put much force into it. But the man flew backward, crashing into the person behind him, and the two of them sailed through the air a good 5 or 6 meters before hitting the ground. The others froze in shock. I looked down at my own foot, just as stunned. That was a casual kick. What would happen if I actually tried? The commotion had caught the attention of the old fisherman, who'd followed when they sensed trouble. Old Xiao was the first to react, his face lighting up with delight. This girl is a natural-born soldier. Old Guo recognized one of the thugs, and his expression turned dark. He moved to step in, but Old Xiao held him back. Let's see how she handles it. I set my things down and cracked my wrists. So this is your turf? And you were calling yourselves my big brothers just now. The remaining men stumbled backward, hands up. Hey, don't do anything crazy. The remaining thugs backed away, and I laughed coldly. Well, what now? One of the smarter ones tried to smooth things over. Misunderstanding. Just a misunderstanding. We were only joking. I wasn't about to let them off that easily. If I didn't put real fear into them today, they'd come back to bother me the next time I showed up to fish. This is the capital city. Broad daylight. And there are bandits robbing people? I wonder if anyone's in charge of keeping order around here. A chubby one stepped forward with a cocky grin. Country girl, you've got guts for someone so small. He lunged at me. I grabbed him and threw him over my shoulder. He landed flat on his back, wheezing. My back. You broke my back. Another one, the hot-tempered type, lost it. You little. Who do you think you are? I closed the distance in a few steps, grabbed his arm before anyone could react, and delivered 3 quick punches to his stomach. I held back my strength. I just wanted to teach them a lesson, not actually cripple anyone. Being an outsider in this city, I couldn't afford that kind of trouble. Now the leader was genuinely scared. Out of 8 men, 3 were on the ground groaning, and a 4th was doubled over like a shrimp. They were used to bullying people who couldn't fight back. They'd never met someone like me. The one who tried to apologize earlier spoke up again, his voice shaking. Please, ma'am, no more. It was a misunderstanding. We're leaving right now. They started dragging their injured friends away, but I stopped them. Who said you could leave? I picked up a small rock from the roadside, held it up so they could all see it, and crushed it to powder with one squeeze. The dust drifted through my fingers. I don't want trouble, I said quietly. But I'm not afraid of it either. If you come after me again, I'll be ready. I'd considered dragging them to the police station, but these guys had clearly been operating here for a while. The local police probably knew about them and looked the other way. Getting involved in that mess as an outsider would only make my life harder. Better to handle it myself and stay low-key. The old fisherman watching from a distance exchanged stunned looks. Old Xiao murmured something I could just barely hear with my enhanced ears. She's the real deal. As for the thugs, whatever thoughts of revenge they'd been forming evaporated the instant they saw that rock turn to dust. I wasn't some helpless girl. I was a nightmare they wanted no part of. The leader straightened up painfully and bowed his head. We had no idea who we were dealing with. We're sorry. From now on, if we see you, we'll walk the other way. Please, let us go. I rolled my eyes at the thugs and waved them off. As they limped away, I called after them. A word of advice. Keep doing wrong, and it'll catch up with you eventually. Stop wasting your lives. The leader glanced back with a complicated expression before hurrying his crew along. Behind me, I could faintly hear the old fisherman talking. Old Xiao stroked his chin. That girl is smarter than she lets on. Old Guo watched the thugs hobble away with a dark look on his face. Apparently, he recognized the leader as someone connected to his own family. But that wasn't my problem. I walked until I found the spot I'd scouted earlier. A crooked willow tree leaning over the water, its branches creating a canopy of shadow perfect for hiding what I was about to do. I set my things down and crawled under the hanging branches. Dipping my hand into the water, I released a tiny amount of the space's pond water into the river. Even that small drop worked like a magnet. Fish, shrimp, crabs, tadpoles, all sorts of creatures swarmed toward my hand. Hidden beneath the willow's cover, I collected them into my space one batch after another. I gathered at least 10 different types of fish: catfish, black carp, silver carp, blackfish, bream, common carp, bass, salmon, mandarin fish, minnows, and even some ornamental fish that had no business being in a city moat. I didn't question it, I just collected them. I didn't get greedy. I had enough now to keep Dad fed with nutritious meals throughout his recovery. I pulled my hand out and packed up. I jogged to the bus stop, and caught one just in time. The bus was full with no seats left, so I stood in the back holding my bucket. A woman next to me spotted the fish inside, and her eyes lit up. "Girl, would you trade that fish?" I didn't want to draw attention. "Sorry, it's for a family member in the hospital. They need the nutrition." She looked disappointed but pressed on. "Could I have just half? My daughter-in-law just had a baby and doesn't have enough milk. A fish soup would really help." She looked at my clothes, clearly from the countryside, and seemed to believe I was telling the truth about the hospital. Then she asked eagerly, "Are you getting off at the hospital stop?" I noticed the woman was carrying bags from the hospital direction, which told me she was headed there too. When I confirmed I was getting off at the hospital stop, her face relaxed with relief. She couldn't take her eyes off the black fish in my bucket. I could tell she was determined to get it no matter what. She'd already checked the market and the state-run food shops. No fish available until tomorrow morning. But her newborn grandson couldn't wait. Her daughter-in-law had gone into early labor after being bumped by a neighbor's kid, delivering more than 20 days ahead of schedule. The shock had left her unable to produce milk, and the baby wouldn't take formula. He was crying from hunger, and this grandmother was desperate. She'd heard that blackfish soup was one of the best things for helping a new mother produce milk and recover her strength. She wasn't leaving without that fish, even if it meant begging. When the bus stopped, she followed me off and got right to the point. "I'll trade you meat tickets for the fish. That way we both solve our problems." I thought about it. Actually, Dad had just come out of surgery, and fish soup wasn't ideal for him right now. The fatty acids in fish can interfere with wound healing in the early stages. Meat would be better for us at the moment.
"Deal," I said.
"And let me share in your grandson's good luck. How do you want to do this?" She tested the waters. "If you don't mind, I'd like to trade for the whole fish." I agreed. With meat tickets, I could go to the state-run restaurant and buy a proper meat dish for my parents. But I was careful. I asked her to come with me to the ward so my mother could see the trade happening. I didn't want Mom worrying that I'd gotten the tickets through questionable means. On the way, I learned her name was Ji Ganlon. She was an accountant at the steel rolling mill. She seemed like a decent, straightforward woman. When we reached the ward, Mom looked up anxiously. "Chushua, what took you so long?" I went to Dad's bedside first. He was awake.
"Dad, you're up."
"How do you feel?" He forced a smile. "Much better than before." I could tell he was lying. The anesthesia was wearing off, the surgical site had to be throbbing, and he looked dizzy. But he didn't want me to worry. Mom then noticed the bucket in my hand. "Where did that come from?" When Mom asked about the bucket, I suddenly realized my mistake. The bucket was from my space, made of 100-year-old purple sandalwood. If anyone who knew about antiques saw it, I'd have a lot of explaining to do. I quickly changed the subject. The doctor said Dad needs nutritious food to recover. We don't have meat tickets, so I went in the moat to see if I could catch some fish. Got lucky. Mom and the woman in the next bed both stared at the fish in the bucket, eyes wide. Ji Ganlon stepped forward with a warm smile and explained the situation to Mom. Her daughter-in-law had just given birth, couldn't produce milk, and the baby was hungry. She wanted to trade meat tickets for the fish, so she could make soup. Mom felt a bit awkward about the trade at first. Meat tickets were valuable, and fish could be caught for free with some effort. But when she saw the size of the fish, she was too shocked to argue. My daughter caught it. It's her decision. The trade went smoothly. Ji Ganlon pulled out a handful of tickets from her pocket, counted out the right amount of meat tickets, and then added 2 extra industrial coupons as a gift. "Those are from me, Annie, to you." Her family wasn't short on meat tickets. They'd been stockpiling them ever since learning her daughter-in-law was pregnant. And her family had a refrigerator at home, so the fish would keep. She was generous because she could see we were honest, decent people. The rough ceramic bowl on our bedside table told her everything about our situation. The question of how to transport the fish was solved when Ji Ganlon mentioned she had a relative working in the hospital kitchen. She'd have part of the fish cooked right away and send the rest home with her son. I helped carry the fish to the kitchen, and once Ji Ganlon was busy, I found a quiet corner and collected the sandalwood bucket back into my space. I couldn't let anyone else see it. When I got back to the ward, other families were already eating their evening meals. Mom immediately pulled me aside. her face full of worry and confusion. "What really happened today?" she whispered. "You left here empty-handed. No rod, no net, nothing. How on earth did you catch a fish that big?"